Supremacy Games. Chapter 1101 to 1125. I really didn't think I will pull it off even after receiving surrender penalty. Felix smiled with a relieved expression as he bathed under the animated cheers of his fans. He was truly taken by surprise at the amount of Empyrean points awarded to him after slaying the virtual god. But, after hearing that its prowess was equalized to the top 20 players, it made sense. After all, it wasn't an achievement that anyone could pull it off. If it wasn't for Felix receiving help from Midgard N8 and the others, it wouldn't have been possible. Big congratulations to Landlord! Ulfang shouted excitedly, I have commentated plenty of Empyrean games and this is the first time I have seen this happening. No one argued with that, even the players had never seen a game's MVP lose the first rank with X4 multiplier. They doubted this would happen anytime soon. Here I thought I would be saving my treasures. Your boy is really like a vacuum, he just has to suck everything out of my pockets every time. Aspidakelone smiled wryly. Tisk, he just got lucky that Empyrean games follow performance system. If not, his surrender would have sealed his fate. Saurus scoffed. He wouldn't feel at peace without leaving a bad remark after another brutal defeat at hands of Felix. This time, he didn't wait for a response from Thor as he swiftly teleported away and was followed by his partners. Fortunately, they were smart enough not to celebrate Felix's defeat after he surrendered. They were slapped far too many times. They became careful with their words and insults. After 4 hours of napping, Felix finally woke up and went to take a quick shower. He was just too tired mentally from the game. He didn't even bother to remain for the final interview or check his current rank. With 390 EP I should have passed rank 400. Felix said as he opened the holographic Empyrean ranking. You jumped straight to rank 388, not bad. Asna commentated as she eyed Felix's new rank. Not bad? It's quite a massive jump. Felix smiled with a pleased expression. He knew it would have taken him at least 2 or 3 MVPs to make such a drastic jump. Since he had surpassed rank 400, this exempted him from the mandatory participation in the promotion games to Empyrean rank. Are you going to participate in another game? Asna wondered, knowing that Felix was allowed to join any Empyrean game he desired without limitations. I am done for now. Felix shook his head. The fact that he was forced to surrender had set up an alarm in Felix's mind. Now that he was ranked in the 300s, he knew that couldn't participate in games lower than his rank. The available games in the next year had average rank 100200400. Felix didn't dare participating in a much higher average rank after what happened in this game. I need to get much stronger, so I can stomp anyone in path even if I had sh*t teammates. Felix proclaimed coldly as he waved the holographic list away. Soon, his expression turned back to easygoing after recalling the earning list. He requested Queen AI to show it to him. Empyrean Winning Wish. Unique title, The God's Lair. Streaming revenue, 11.554 trillion SC. Game points collected solo, 0 GP. Damn, we are really getting paid big bucks. Felix sucked a cold breath at his earned revenue. It was higher than many races' GDP. No wonder no one wants to lose his Empyrean rank. Asna commentated. For those authoritative figures, they could easily just stop playing Empyrean games and let their rank decay with time. Yet, they still make sure to play at least a game a year to keep their ranks steady. If it wasn't for this type of insane money that could help their backgrounds and race in general, they wouldn't bother to let themselves play a game to entertain the common folk. I should really invest in a much better spaceship. Felix murmured, I have tens of trillions in my bank account. If I pushed enough money around and used my connections, I can get my hands on the best materials and hire metal race engineers to custom build me one. Felix's current spaceship was truly a great companion for a very long time, but Felix knew that it was time to have an upgrade. He might not have cared before, but after realizing that a universal war was on the way, he knew that he needed the best of the best in space travel. It might seem like it would come cheaply, but Felix understood that he would be needing a couple of trillions at minimum to make such an upgrade. After all, he intended to use alloys on SUPREMACY level and have tens of white plasma weapons in addition to be completely covered in symbiote dead skin. Just one white plasma weapon cost at least 200 billion since it was the best destructive weapon available at the moment. By the way, why do you have 0 game points? Candace interrupted Felix's thought process. Oh yeah, that's because of my surrender. Felix smiled bitterly. Besides performance rating, you lose everything earned from the games when you surrender. That's gotta sting. Candace knew that Felix should have earned quite an impressive sum of game points after slaying the virtual god. Fortunately, he didn't win other treasures or such in the game. Now that you reminded me, I need to get my hands on the revive coupon. Without delay, Felix swiftly opened the prize pool and checked on all the purchasable treasures. With an annoyed expression, he scrolled past the legendary artifacts and stopped at the coupon section. Unlike his previous prize pool, the coupon section had almost all known coupons in the platform up for sale. There was plenty in the stock for each coupon, making sure that the Empyrean players wouldn't struggle to get what they wanted. After all, they were the aces and lords of this universe. There was no way the Alliance would be pulling away something such as coupons. Let's stock up on surrender coupons. Felix swiftly bought 3 surrender coupons, not daring to play a game without one. He bought 3 at once, knowing that the expiration date for Empyrean coupons was 5 years instead of 1 year. Since tier coupons were useless in this rank and there were no coupons to protect the player's Empyrean points, Felix scrolled past everything until he reached the revival coupon. 500k points, damn, I will be slaving myself for tens of games without using surrender coupon to collect this much. Felix's eyelids twitched after seeing the revival coupon's insane price. The worst part? If he took a loan to buy it, he would be paying 5% interest each year. He could smell human scummy monetization techniques emitting from it since every Empyrean player must purchase this revival coupon to save himself in the worst case scenario. Since it was simply impossible to collect this many game points without playing tens of games, everyone would take a loan for it. This would force them to keep competing at the best of their abilities to gain as many game points as possible to pay their debts. Although Felix knew that this was a rabbit hole, he could only jump in it since his life was more important than anything. Wait, check your coupons from your win streak. Asna suggested. I doubt they will give me a revival coupon, but all right. Felix shrugged his shoulders and opened his profile. Then, he pressed on his win streak tab and was shown the 5 coupons he earned. As he said, there was no revival coupon, just a bunch of useless coupons in his current rank. You should forward a complaint. Asna frowned with a dissatisfied expression. Those F***ers are giving you crap when your win streak is already past 14 games. Asna's displeasure was in place since the rewards really didn't match the difficulty of what Felix was pulling off. Well, my situation is quite unique. Felix scratched his cheek thoughtfully. All the players with the longest win streak never managed to reach Empyrean rank. Felix knew that even Noble Tibius, the current holder of the longest win streak, had reached his limit when he made it to the Empyrean promotional game. That's because he started from bronze rank and never used tier advancement coupon to push himself higher in rank. So, even though his MMR was high, it was somewhat offset by his low rank. Meanwhile, Felix wasn't concerned with his win streak and just pushed through the ranks as high as possible. He even skipped an entire rank due to the returnee system. As for the old monsters such as Elder Dragon and the other 9 Supremes, they stopped fighting a long while ago before the win streak system was ever implemented. So, even though some of them had 20 wins in a row or even higher, it wasn't counted in the system. They didn't give a shit about such a vain thing to correct it. In other words, Felix's win rate was actually the first proper one, where he didn't need to take advantage of the system. This made him overrank his current rewards. Felix might not care about the pride and honor of having such a long win rate, but he did care about useful rewards. Queen, would it be possible to change my coupon rewards? Felix offered a formal complaint, "I don't think I am getting properly compensated for keeping my win streak. Please wait a moment." Queen AI did her calculation for a few moments before returning to Felix with, "Your complaint has been deemed reasonable and been sent to the SG committee. They will reach out to you as soon as your complaint has been addressed." "Thanks." Felix nodded in appreciation and dropped the subject for now. As for the revival coupon, he decided to wait on the loan until the situation gets settled with the SG committee. "I might be able to rip them off out of one." Felix smiled shamelessly, "Hee, they won't say no to me when I'm bringing them hundreds of trillions of revenue." It didn't take a couple of hours before Felix received an email from the SG committee about his complaint. "Well, that was quick," Felix expressed as he opened the email, knowing that his reputation and importance to the alliance made it hard for the SG committee to ignore his complaint. If it were him in his previous life, he wouldn't have received a reply until the day he dies in his bed. "Dear Mr. Landlord, we have heard your complaint loud and clear. We apologize for not noticing the flaw in the win streak rewards system beforehand. After careful discussion and consideration, we have voted on replacing the 5 coupons reward to 5 prize chests following this rarity, common, rare, epic, legendary. The prize chests would be filled with many treasures and other goodies from your current in-game prize pool. For example, legendary scrolls would have 0.5% chance of dropping from common prize chest, 0.7% chance from rare prize chest, 1% chance from epic prize chest, 5% chance from legendary chest. Legendary artifacts would also be included in those chests, however, the chances would be tremendously low. 0.00000000001%, 0.00001%, 0.0001%, 0.01%. Since Empyrean prize pool have coupons as well, we have decided to remove them from the available prizes besides revival coupon. In their place, you will be finding game points pouches that provide from 10 KGP up to 200 KGP depending on your luck as well as the rarity of the prize chests. Last but not least, the prize chests rarity would depend on your current average game rank. The higher your rank, the rarer chest prizes you will get. I hope this new system is up to your satisfaction. Yours sincerely, SG Committee. PS. Your rewarded coupons from this game will be replaced into random rarity prize chests after you close your complaint ticket. Felix swiftly read the email before closing it with a satisfied wide grin. Their idea is actually much better than mine, I may not need to rip them off after all. Felix assumed that they would compensate him with game points, and it would be the end of it. He didn't expect that they would reform the entire rewards system to accommodate him. I haven't felt this kind of pressure to keep my win rate for a long time, Felix remarked as he closed the ticket, informing the SG committee that he was extremely pleased and grateful for their effort. When he started playing in this platform, he tried his very best to keep his win streak for the sake of those coupons. But the higher he climbed, the more available they become in prize pools, making him not too excited about the 5 coupons he earned for free. With this new system, Felix was more motivated than ever to make sure to keep his win streak ongoing. In fact, he believed that even other Empyrean players would start taking their win streak with great importance. After all, win streak system activate when players win 3 games in a row, that's doable for some monsters if they had luck in their side. Though, they would be winning only 3 prize chests unlike him since they require 5 wins in a row to get what he had. They haven't stated it in the email, but this new system is applied only in Empyrean rank or in all ranks. Asna wondered. I guess only in Empyrean rank. Felix scratched his chin, though, I think it will be great if it was applied across the entire board. Felix didn't know whether the SG committee had that in mind or not. Honestly, he didn't care too much. He swiftly visited his win streak tab and saw that the shitty coupons were all turned into brilliant prize chests. 1 legendary, 3 epics, and 1 rare, not bad at all. Felix expressed with a pleased tone, knowing his average Empyrean rank made it possible. Wait for me. I want to open a couple. Asna swiftly paid a hefty fine to teleport straight to Felix's house, ignoring every single monetization system in place. You get the rare one. Felix pushed a holographic blue chest in her direction with an annoyed look, knowing that her luck was even shittier than him. Stop being stingy and give me the gold one. Asna gave him a lovely puppy look as she cuddled with him. Nope. Just quit it, you can't seduce freebies from me anymore. Felix pushed her pretty face away, not affected in the slightest by her pitiful look that would move nations to abide by her wishes. Even when I do this. Asna grabbed Felix's hand and placed it inside her pajamas, making him feel the warmth of her perfect breast course through his entire body and soul. Felix went quiet as he was thrown into a sea of pleasure, making him unable to stop fondling Asna's breasts. Just like every other man, it didn't take him long before his hand got greedy and started sliding down her smooth stomach until it reached the forbidden fruit. Where do you think you're going, mister? Asna held that hand just as it was about to touch her most sacred treasure. Don't you want to open the legendary chest? Felix replied with a solemn expression, not having an ounce of shame at going back at his own words. So much for her self-control. Asna giggled and removed her hand, allowing him to touch her as he pleased. And so, with one hand deep in Asna's pants and the other opening the chests, Felix had the happiest grin in his face, like all of his dreams were coming true. As for Asna, her cheeks and ears were already hot enough for food to be cooked on them, yet, she held her moans at his gentle but pleasing touch and kept watching him open the prize chests. Felix might be shameless and not care about spectating tenants, but Asna was still extremely shy when it came to being intimate with Felix. Congratulations for obtaining a rare game points pouch. Congratulations for obtaining an epic game points pouch. Congratulations for obtaining an epic game points pouch. Congratulations for obtaining an epic scroll, apocalyptic snow blizzard. Fortunately, Queen AI kept announcing Felix's prizes loudly with fireworks each time he opened a chest. As predicted, I ain't getting legendary stuff with my crappy luck and those disgustingly low chances. Felix mewed with an annoyed tone as he slipped a finger. Ha! Felix! Asna glared at Felix with an ashamed look while covering her mouth. Just let me have it, can't you see I am upset? Felix made a crestfallen expression while still enjoying the warmth and wetness of her forbidden fruit. Felix knew that Asna wasn't planning on letting him go all the way, but the fact that she allowed to go this far was already a massive upgrade. He wasn't planning on stopping now. Fine. Asna mewed with her head lowered in embarrassment, just be gentle. I am always gentle. Felix got closer to her neck and started kissing it softly before moving up to her right ear, eating it like it was the most delicious popsicle in the universe. This combo was enough to melt any girl, don't even mention the shy Asna, who started breathing heavily, trying her best to alleviate the heat spreading throughout her entire system. When Felix noticed that Asna had gotten in the mood, he got bolder and slipped a second finger, making Asna let out an involuntary moan. Ha! Felix didn't stop there as he increased the pressure on his fingers and speed, until Asna's legs started giving in. From the sight of her toenails curled up, she was feeling them deeply in her soul. Felix, I am feeling like something is coming, please stop. It's natural, just give in. Felix whispered in her ears as he kept kissing her neck. Ha, no, it's weird, I don't like it. Felix knew that she was close, so he ignored her bewitching cries and increased his speed just a bit more until Asna started twitching in his arms, not able to control her body any longer. It's coming, oh no, I can feel it coming. Just as Asna's eyes were starting to roll at the back of her head from her most likely first ever real orgasm, she yelled out loud, Queen AI! In a split second, Asna broke into light particles in Felix's arms, leaving him kissing the back of the couch with a deadpan expression. The tenants, who were just about to turn off the connection to give them some privacy, were left watching Felix with speechless looks. I told you I wasn't comfortable with that weird feeling. Asna murmured in Felix's mind while having her head buried deep in her pillow. Upon hearing her soft apologetic voice, Felix's irritation by her whole shyness washed away. It's all right, I was at fault for being too pushy. Felix smiled wryly. He didn't know Asna's real problem with going all the way, but he recognized that each girl has her time when she was ready. Asna clearly wasn't ready to be on second base, and he wanted to avoid pushing her. Though, he started to fear that Asna might drag him along for millions of years without giving him some due to being a Unigen. He knew that Unigen's perspective on time wasn't anywhere close to humans. I am really starting to fear for you, my little general. Felix said with a bitter smile as he looked at the tent in his pants. At least I still have you to comfort me. Felix chuckled as he looked at the golden chest. He knew that Asna wasn't going to return anytime soon. But first, he opened the game points pouches. Congratulations on obtaining 5000 GP. Congratulations on obtaining 20,000 GP. Congratulations on obtaining 70,000 GP. Not bad. Felix smiled in satisfaction. He could see that his shortage of game points would be solved if he kept getting those chests. Now to the main dish. Felix rubbed his palms and brought the golden chest in front of him. He took a deep breath and clicked on it while wishing that he gets revival coupon. He could see at the side of the golden chest the chances of all the goodies in it. The revival coupon had a decent 6% from legendary chests. Alas! Congratulations on obtaining a game points pouch. PFFFF. Felix exhaled in disappointment as he eyed the golden shimmering game points pouch. Without much care, he opened it as well. Congratulations on obtaining a 169k GP. Well. Felix's disappointment washed away the moment he saw the staggering amount of rewarded game points. He had never won this much even if he combined all game points earned from both of his lives. You are now merely 250k short of revival coupon. Are you still going to take a loan? Candice asked. Yes. Felix nodded. If I won my next game and get the same amount, I will be paying it back almost instantly before the interest rate F***ck's me up. This was the smartest and safest way to go about this. So, Felix contacted Queen AI and requested to approve him for a 250k loan. She approved of it instantly since it was to buy the revival coupon, only revival coupon allowed to be purchased by loans. You have purchased revival coupon. It will be used automatically if you died in a game. Queen AI disclosed. There goes 500,000 game points. Felix smiled wryly, knowing that if players below Empyrean rank heard of this, they would shit themselves. VRR. Suddenly, Felix's AP bracelet vibrated, making him glance at the screen. When he saw that it was a call from his Malak, he picked it up. What's up? Felix asked. Malak gave him a warm congratulation for his victory before going straight to business. I have gathered all bloodliners with water mythical bloodlines. Do you want me to start our journey to the 9th Elvish realm Amansaran, right now? Yes, the sooner, the better. Felix nodded. All right, we will be departing today. Just as Felix was about to hang up, he remembered Olivia's situation. By the way, pick up little Oli with you. Okay. Thanks. Felix hung up the call and swiftly contacted Olivia. For the past months, Felix was waiting for Lady Yggdrasil to call him to discuss when she would be free to accept Olivia. Instead of passively waiting, he believed that it was better to bring Olivia to her now and see what she would do with her. Naturally, he had to tell Olivia about it first. After a couple of rings, Olivia picked up the video call and greeted with her angelic cute voice, Felix. Are you feeling better? I had my fair share of rest. Felix nodded with a faint smile before saying, I called you to tell you about an opportunity that will be beneficial for your future if everything worked out. What sort of opportunity? Olivia titled her head in confusion. It's at the same level as Noah's opportunity. Felix informed, if you are interested, call Malak, she will update you with the rest. Of course I am interested. I will look for Malak right away. Olivia remarked with a delighted expression. Good, see you soon. Felix said his goodbyes and hang up. He knew that there was no need to say much in a video call. Olivia was still too ignorant about primogenitor's matters, and he felt that it would be best to tell her everything face to face. Whatever happened with Lady Yggdrasil, that up to Olivia to win her approval, he already did his job by presenting her with a lifetime opportunity. A couple of months later. VRR. Sorry, I have to pick this. Felix apologized while pausing his runic training with Selfie. It was a call from Malak and Felix knew she would be informing him about her arrival in the 9th Elvish realm. As he expected, Malak, Olivia, and the rest of bloodliners have finally made it to the Elvish realms after a grueling long journey. I have to depart, my friends have arrived. Felix informed. Want me to go with you? Selfie asked with sparkles in her eyes. You know your mother isn't going to agree to that. Felix chuckled as he logged out, not wanting to get scolded by Lady Yggdrasil for wasting more of Selfie's precious time. She was already doing him a great favor by teaching him about runes. Felix swiftly jumped inside Candace's aircraft and traveled towards the 9th Elvish realm. If it was up to him, he would have preferred them coming all the way to the 1st Elvish realm. Unfortunately, that wasn't happening even with his connection. The best he could do was allow them access to the 9th Elvish realm since it required basic temporarily visa. In a couple of minutes, Felix arrived at the capital planet of Amansaran. Unlike the peaceful and mostly empty Furlund, there were thousands of cities inside every single forest. They were all bustling and lively with people from all kinds of races and backgrounds. Still, the most dominated race were the half-elves as they could be seen everywhere. Since there were already plenty of unique pure-blooded elves, the mixture created from interracial sex with other races was truly an eye-opener for anyone. When Felix arrived at the capital city, he didn't even need to use an elaborated disguise as this messy pot of different races made it almost impossible for anyone to pay attention to him. Damn, they are even more racist to half-elves than humans. Felix commentated as he roamed the streets without seeing a single pure-blooded elf. What do you expect? Asna replied, pure-blooded elves sees half-elves as abominations born from pure-blooded elves, who betrayed their own race to settle for lower life forms. That is immensely demeaning in their eyes. That's just sad to be honest. Felix shook his head in disapproval. He knew that all pure-blooded elves follow their hearts even if it meant falling in love with the least respected race in the entire universe. Because of their obsession and extreme loyalty to their lovers, they weren't concerned about their racial rules. They just accept the fact that their children would be mixed and banished to the 9th realm. Naturally, they would be banished with them without any way to visit the higher realms. If even Queen Alfreda ended up falling in love with a half-elf and was willing to let go of her statue and everything to be with him, there was no need to mention the others. This was one of the reasons why Alfreda refused Selfie's relationship with Felix. It was mostly racially empowered, but she also knew that Selfie wouldn't be approved as a legitimate queen by the rest of the pure-blooded races if she married a human. Although Selfie had the backing of Lady Yggdrasil and no one would take away her queen position regardless of what she did, Queen Alfreda didn't want her little sister to be hated across all 8 realms. Fortunately for her, Felix had no intentions of joining this racial mess in the first place. Some time later, Felix went to a fancy restaurant that was built inside a breathtaking giant orange tree. He gave his name to the receptionist and was walked towards a private closed-off room. Without needing to knock, Malak opened the door for him and greeted with a beautiful smile, "Nice to see you face to face, Sir Felix. I was close to forgetting your face. It's really been a while." Felix chuckled and gave her a quick hug. She wasn't the only one who hadn't seen Felix in the real world for a very long time. Felix. The moment Felix broke off his hug with Malak, Olivia jumped in his embrace like a little chipmunk, barely reaching his waist with their height difference. While Olivia's height remained stagnant, Felix kept getting taller each time he replaced his bloodline, pushing him to 2 meters. I missed you too. Felix patted Olivia's head with a happy smile. While she was hugging him, Felix looked around the room and saw Hina and a couple of nervous and excited lads. Thank you all for coming on a short notice even without knowing why. Felix nodded in appreciation. A handsome young man with a long green hair answered with stars in his eyes, anything for my lore, Sir Felix. The rest might not have answered in the same enthusiasm, but it was clear that all of them were fans of Felix. They agreed to come for free the moment they heard that they will get to meet with you. Malik chuckled. I appreciate that greatly. Felix replied with a pleased tone. Felix's presence within the Milky Way galaxy had already transcended godhood, even many origin bloodliners took him as their role model without caring about the age difference. I would rather not waste your time, so let's make this quick. Felix swiftly walked towards them and requested them to extend their hands. Albeit confused, they trusted that Felix wouldn't harm them. Felix held Hina's hand first and requested in his mind, Asna, you may start. Gimme a section. Asna closed her eyes shut and started navigating Hina's Kraken's bloodline, searching for soul threads. Each time she found one, she pulls it inside Felix's body, in a few seconds at best, she was already done with Hina. Is he up yet? Felix inquired. No, keep going. Lady Sphinx answered. Felix dropped Hina's hand and went to the second one, doing the same thing. Sadly, the soul threads were still not enough to create Kraken's wisp of consciousness. Felix wished for the best and continued with the remaining bloodliners. Although everyone was confused, no one dared to speak and ask about Felix's motives. You can stop, I can feel his wisp of consciousness awakening. Lady Sphinx informed after Felix reached the last bloodliner. At last. Felix sighed in relief. He knew that if all soul threads of those Kraken's bloodliners weren't enough, he would be forced to cultivate a new bloodliner from the get-go, that would take forever. Thank you guys for coming. Malik will take care of you whether you decided to stay here until your visa expire or depart immediately. Felix gave them a head nod of approval and exited the room. Oli, I have some important matters to handle right now. I will be visiting your hotel room soon. Felix informed Olivia before entering the Void Realm. Okay. Olivia could only agree, still confused about this abnormal meeting. The rest of the bloodliners shared her feelings, having no clue what Felix just did to them. Ting! Ting! Before they could discuss it, they heard their bank notification, making them glance at their screens. When they saw the amount wired to them, they completely forgot about Felix. 200 million SC. They all sucked a cold breath in agitation. They might be possessing a mythical bloodline worth tens of billions SC, but it didn't mean that they were rich enough to look at such a massive figure with disdain. Have fun. Malik held Olivia and Hina's arms and took them away. The rest could manage themselves as that amount was enough to buy them the most exclusive ride back home. As for Felix, he didn't go far after entering the Void Realm as he straightaway jumped inside his consciousness space to meet the Great Kraken. If he wasn't this rushed, he wouldn't have minded hanging for an hour or so with his fans. The moment Felix opened his eyes, he saw his tenants gathering around giant blue-skinned man, wearing a long robe that hid his arms and legs. His face was quite scary as he had many tentacles for a chin and only 2 nostrils instead of a nose, making him resemble Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean movie. He was wearing a wide black and blue hat that was covering his scalp completely. Honestly, Felix didn't want to see underneath it as he spotted many smaller tentacles peeking once in a while. Although he looked like a hideous scary monster that would fright kids to death, he had a gentle expression as he spoke with Thor and the others. Felix, come greet Kraken. Hormungandr said. Without delay, Felix swiftly joined the group and bowed his head respectfully. Junior Felix greet the great elder Kraken. So, you were the one going through all this trouble to awake me in the matter universe. Elder Kraken sized up Felix with a carefree expression. Yes. Felix nodded while his heart skipped a beat. He always gets slightly nervous when asked this question since he never knows how the primogenitors would react. I have to thank you, then. Elder Kraken cracked a spooky but kind smile as he patted Felix in the head with a long tentacle, extending from his sleeve. Hey? Thank me. Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise as he had never gotten this reaction before. He has just told us that his biggest regret wasn't being able to leave a wisp of consciousness in the matter universe before visiting the spirit realm. Asna cleared Felix's confusion. I see. All of you did me a great favor. Elder Kraken sighed, regardless of what I did, I just couldn't find a way to keep one wisp of consciousness alive. How about we sit first? Lady Sphinx suggested before anyone could ask him. Everyone walked to the round table and took their already marked seats, even Candace sat with them since Senior became the new maid after he was forced to leave his main consciousness inside Felix's mind. He was happy to serve these bunch of overreaching lords. My masters told me that you were the greatest soul researcher in the universe. Felix wondered, even you haven't found a way to separate death from main consciousness to wisps. Felix already knew that when main consciousness truly dies, the rest of wisps follows it shortly even if they were at edges of the universe or in another dimension. Believe me, I have tried every single method. Elder Kraken shook his head, it was just impossible. Not anymore. Fenrir said expressionlessly, implying Felix Sassna's method of reviving primogenitor's wisps of consciousness. Indeed, if only I found this method, my experience would have been different in the spirit realm. Elder Kraken nodded. Mind me asking how is it? Suddenly, Lord Cows's voice resounded in everyone's ears as he materialized above the table, startling everyone. Crash! He also has Lord Cows within him. Enir was the most shocked as he dropped a bottle of wine, having his soul freeze immediately. Everyone ignored the mess he made and eyed Lord Cows with surprised looks. Lord Cows, we are honored to have you finally join us. Carbuncle dropped his joint as he greeted in a respectful manner. Even when Carbuncle was awakened, Lord Cows didn't bother to wake up his wisp of consciousness to greet him, it might be asleep, but everything was sent to his main consciousness, making him aware of what's going on at all time. Lord Cows nodded expressionlessly at Carbuncle before requesting politely to take a seat with them. Please, we always leave your seat open. Lady Sphinx extended her hand at an empty seat with Lord Cow's name engraved on it. Thank you. Lord Cow sat in it and eyed Elder Kraken with a face void of any features, making it almost impossible to read him through his dry tone. Knowing that Lord Cows didn't like wasting time over greetings and such, Elder Kraken answered him, I apologize, but I can't disclose verbally anything related to my stay in the spirit realm. Even you. Thor sighed in disappointment. Felix and Asna were also disappointed as they were longingly expecting to hear about their destined destination. Any kind of information would help them prepare for that mysterious but scary journey. Well, I'm forbidden from telling you about it, but there isn't any law that stops me from linking both of my consciousnesses to show you some of my memories there. Elder Kraken replied with a faint smile. You reached such a high level in your soul control. Lady Sphinx raised an eyebrow in surprise. Is it hard? Felix wondered. Hard? Linking your wisps with your main consciousness through dimensions isn't the same as doing it in the spirit realm. Lady Sphinx disclosed, spirit realm might be in a different dimension, but it's considered as a completely separated plane from the matter universe even if it was mirroring it. Seeing that Felix, Candace, and Enir were having difficulty understanding what she meant, Elder Kraken simplified it patiently, it's like linking your consciousness with another that's in a different universe. I can't even imagine it. Felix expressed with a stunned expression. He always knew that spirit realm could never compare to void realm, shadow realm, and such, but he had no idea that it was this isolated from the matter universe. This indicated that only Elder Kraken was capable of doing this. Without delay, Elder Kraken manifested a circular mirror in the center of the table. The moment it was turned on, Felix titled his head in confusion after seeing a greenish landscape that stretched to the horizon. There were many agricultural farms of different planted grains already grown tall enough to be harvested. Gentle breeze was passing by on those fields, making the plants flatter peacefully. The fields weren't deserted as there were many farm animals feasting on those plants in groups. Felix recognized some of them and was confused by others. Yet, what weirded him the most was the color of those animals, as they had a unified white color from head to toe. Are we watching Elder's memories while he is still in the matter universe? Felix mewed. Elder Kraken heard him, making him emit an unusual sounding chuckle that resembled slimy objects rubbing against each other. I had the same reaction when I first opened my eyes inside the spirit realm. Elder Kraken said. You're telling me this is part of the spirit realm? Felix was too shocked by the revelation, he didn't even bother to blink. His reaction was shared by everyone except of Lady Sphinx. Isn't this a physical plane? How is that possible? Thor remarked with an astounded expression. Even Lord Cowes was slightly taken back, as he had assumed that the spirit realm would be just a reflective plane of our universe while having the spirits roam inside of it. In fact, this was Lady Sphinx's own findings when she first unlocked her spiritual vision. She was the one sharing the information to her peers, making them have their first understanding of spirit realm. Unfortunately, ever since then, Lady Sphinx refused to share anything about it. I can't say anything, so don't ask me and just keep watching. Elder Kraken mentioned, my memories will explain it all. Just as he said, Elder Kraken in the screen started speaking with an intrigued tone. Marvelous, is this really a physical plane or just an illusion? The spirit's guardian's mental prowess is on par to that trickster without requiring mastery over illusion laws. Elder Kraken paused the screen and extended his hand, clearly allowing them to discuss and analyze his commentary. It really makes sense if it's an illusion. Hormungandr nodded. But if the spirit realm is turned into a physical plane through illusion, why did Lady Sphinx see a mere reflection with spirits roaming around? Carbuncle frowned. He wore his serious pants the moment the mirror appeared, since his precious wife was staying in the spirit realm. Both versions can be right. Lord Cowes reasoned expressionlessly. Lady Sphinx saw a reflection, since that's the true spirit realm. This physical plane should be occupying just a small part of the spirit realm. As expected of Lord Cowes. Elder Kraken confirmed his theory without saying much. Felix and the others also felt that his theory was the most plausible. Elder Kraken unpaused the memories mirror, showing that Elder Kraken was now scanning his body. When they saw that he possessed a shimmering humanoid golden body, they were left at loss for words. There was nothing related to his previous octopus body even slightly. Interesting, am I given a new random body, or this is what everyone's looks like? Elder Kraken wondered in the screen. This time Elder Kraken didn't pause the memories, instead, he skipped to a new memory. He was shown to be flying in the sky akin to feather while looking below him at the infinite peaceful fields of greenery. Just as Felix wanted to comment on the free flight part, his words were stuck in his throat at the sight of marvelous city hiding behind countless green clouds. When the Elder Kraken burst through them, the city was displayed in its glorious and spine-tingling state. It was built atop gentle hills and was truly an architectural wonder. Its appearance was matched by the backdrop of ever-clear skies, which have helped the city seem like it was part of heaven. The skyline was overwhelmed with crystal towers, which were tall enough they pierced the clouds and remained hidden there. Felix wasn't even focusing on them but on the countless humanoid spirits flying around the skyline and walking down the streets just like a normal city. Some were entering malls, some were seen sitting in cafes and restaurants, and some were even walking their pets. All of them shared the same humanoid height and shape as Elder Kraken, however, their skins had different colors and contrasting levels of brilliance. Some had green skin and were shimmering brilliantly, while some had dark skin and were as dim as moonless night. What is this? Felix mumbled with widened eyes, seeming like someone suffering from a cultural shock. He wasn't the only one with such reaction, as the tenants all appeared quite startled by the magnificence of the city and its population. What stunned them even more was the fact that those spirits looked to be alive and with emotions. They might share the same shape and height, but all of them had different facial features, which were expressing varied emotions. All of them thought that they would be seeing spirits with blank faces since everyone supposedly lost his memories upon death. This is really getting more fascinating by the second. Elder Kraken commentated with an elevated tone as he examined the spirits from the sky. For everyone to be invigorated with life, the spirit's guardian must have given them new memories and made them forget about their pre-death life. Lord Kaos commentated. Why would he do such a thing? Felix asked as he eyed Asna. Everyone turned to stare at Asna, knowing that she was the only one capable of understanding the spirit's guardian. How should I know? Asna shrugged her shoulders. Felix eyed her speechlessly before reminding her, you told me that he is your friend. Oh, about that. Asna coughed, I kinda used friend term a bit too loosely. How loose? Felix's heart skipped a beat at this new information, knowing that Asna was a shrewd witch when he first met her. I never met him before. Asna said while avoiding eye contact with Felix. Are you being for real? Felix almost threw his wine glass in her direction at the sound of that. The only reason he wasn't scared shitless about visiting the spirit realm was because of believing that Spirit Guardian was friends with Asna. You don't have to worry. Asna murmured while fiddling with her fingers, he does know about my existence, so, if he doesn't help us, at least he wouldn't mistreat us. That's I can vouch for. Elder Kraken interjected with a faint smile, Soul's Guardian doesn't kill anyone. How can you be so certain? Thor asked. Well, I can't say much, but I can assure you that if you ever visited the spirit realm somehow, I will take great care of you. Elder Kraken stated confidently, my social status there is quite high. Before Felix could push on this note, Elder Kraken silenced him, I can't share any further. Keep watching and you will understand. So, Felix and the others watched Elder Kraken enter the city and start roaming around the streets while being avoided by other spirits. Anytime he got near one of them, they lower their heads and fly away from him. All of them did so with respectful expressions, however, Felix and the tenants were able to pick up hints of dread and worry as they flew away from him. Interesting, the only thing that explains their reaction is my golden-colored skin. Elder Kraken reasoned as he kept attempting to make contact with those pedestrians. As he mentioned, there wasn't anyone near him with a golden skin, majority had dark, brown, purple, and blue skins. Do you think Spirit's Guardian created a social system that is based on skin color to keep everything in order? Hormungandr wondered. Must be something in that sense. You don't need to guess here. Elder Kraken informed as he pointed at the screen. Everything will be explained soon. The moment he finished, two silver humanoid spirits landed next to his main consciousness and made a weird sign with their hands, appearing like they were greeting him. Excellence, please follow us. One of the silver spirits uttered a weirdly sounding sentence that failed to register in Felix's mind. When he looked around him, he realized that everyone was in the same boat. Don't mind if I do. It looked Elder Kraken in the screen understood him as he flew behind him towards one of the tallest crystal towers. He asked me to follow him. Elder Kraken translated before adding, I will be translating everything since they are speaking the language of the dead, a language that can't be taught or understood unless one was a spirit. Everyone nodded in understanding and focused on the silver spirits, who were being avoided by everyone. In a few moments, they reached the crystal tower and went through the glass window akin to ghosts. Oh, we can switch between physical and spiritual state. Elder Kraken did the same with a curious expression. After going through the glass window, he saw that the floor was somewhat packed with spirits, who were sitting on chairs with blank expressions. They had some sort of helmet-like device on top of their heads and spiritual screens at the sides, showing millions of pictures being skipped rapidly. The silver spirits didn't state anything and led Elder Kraken to an empty chair. Excellence, please sit. One of them requested. Can I ask why? Elder Kraken inquired as eyed the helmet with a hint of concern. We will be providing you with information that explain the spirit realm and also a new personality that fit your soul's status. The silver spirit answered composedly. A new personality. Elder Kraken frowned. No wonder they weren't freaked with me talking normally. Spirits must come here with just basic intelligence. What if I don't agree? Elder Kraken asked. The silver spirits looked at each other with a hint of confusion, seeming like they weren't used to having new spirits ask too many questions. It made sense that other spirits wouldn't create trouble since they would have no clue about themselves and would be forced to adhere to the spirit realm rules, unlike Elder Kraken. Their reaction had alerted Elder Kraken, making him add with a faint smile, "I was just joking." Without hesitation, he sat on the chair and placed the helmet on his head. He didn't want to risk alarming the higher-ups, knowing that if they found out about his memories being intact, they wouldn't hesitate to banish him outside this heavenly plane. As expected, the silver spirit's expressions returned to normal after they saw that Elder Kraken was adhering by the rules. "We will be feeding you all the information first about the spirit realm," the silver spirit said as he pressed on a button on the white helmet. In a few moments, the helmet was removed from Elder Kraken's head. "So, that's how it works." After the information was transferred, he was left with a look filled with disbelief and amazement. This was the look of someone who dedicated his entire life to study souls and spirits finally see the entire truth. "So, I was a mere wanderer spirit in this infinite realm before I got fetched by Soul's guardians Karens. How long was I wandering before I was found? Why don't I have memory of it?" Upon hearing his thoughts, Felix felt goosebumps in his skin. Just like the rest, he assumed that Elder Kraken was transported straight towards the heavenly plane since that was the first memory he possessed after unlocking his eyes. But only now did he truly understand that Elder Kraken's spirit remained wandering in the infinite empty spirit realm without a single thought or idea about himself. Even his stored memories in his soul didn't help him realize his situation, it was like his consciousness was shut down. "Because of my golden soul and its shimmering light, I was easily located by the soul's guardians Karens and boarded their ferries to the heavenly plane." Elder Kraken felt chills course on his spine. "If it wasn't for this, I would have been wandering for eternity as a lost spirit without a single clue." This scared Elder Kraken more than his suicide since it meant that he would have died for absolutely no reason. Honestly, even if he knew this before, he would have still done it, taking the risk for knowledge. "No wonder everyone respects and avoid me, my soul is of the highest grade in the entire spirit realm for an outsider, giving me power over any soul below me." Elder Kraken thought. Based on the spirit realm system, the spirit's colors and brightness were defined by three major pillars. Soul's strength and achievements in the living plane defined the color. Achievements implied the beneficial deeds done in one's life from birth to death. In the case of Elder Kraken, an unfathomable number of intelligent and non-intelligent marine races were born because of him. He was like the Genghis Khan of the marine universe as his bloodline and DNA was in high percentage of water races. Populating the universe was an unmeasurable good deed, which he was heavily rewarded for in his afterlife. The best part? A portion of all the beneficial good deeds to the universe done by his descendants were rewarded to him even in the afterlife. This was huge since the skin colors weren't fixed forever but could be improved even within the spirit realm based on one's actions here and his descendants in the living plane. Elder Kraken also had a considerable role in the development of the souls with his obsessive research, this counted as a bonus point to him. The spirit's colors were separated into this order: dark indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, silver, gold. As for white, it was used only on non-intelligent life forms. As for the soul's brightness, in the eyes of Elder Kraken, it was just as important as colors. That's because the Karen fairies always travel towards the spirit, who shimmer the most brilliantly, and pick him up ahead of everyone. Even if a Karen fairy passed by millions of other spirits in its path, it would ignore them all and prioritize that brilliant spirit. Naturally, that's only if the color of the soul was lower in status compared to it. The source of soul brilliance was none other than morality. It didn't matter if one was commoner at the bottom of the pyramid or an emperor at the very top. His morality defies whether he would be picked faster and live in the heavenly plane or be left to wander for eternity until the day his turn arrives. Morality simply implied to live upright and dignified life, where you harm no one without a valid reason. This ensured that true criminals and the scum of the universe wouldn't be picked beforehand others, who were honest and good people. When those three pillars were together, it gave birth to a system that allowed to prioritize only the best of the best from the living plane. In other words, if one lived his life without harming anyone including himself but had absolutely no merits, achievements, or legacy behind, he would be shimmering brilliantly but in dark color. If one had insane achievements but was an absolute menace, he would possess a high-quality color but be as dim as the night. I was fortunate that I had too many good-natured descendants, which helped balance my brightness. Elder Kraken stated while sighing in relief. With all the heinous experiments I did to push my soul's research, I would have never been found. I never thought that Spirit's guardian would have such a concept to filter the spirits. Felix expressed. It's more detailed than this, but I can't show everything. Elder Kraken said with a solemn tone, the Spirit's guardian might be able to find out about my transgression if I went too far. The moment Elder Kraken unpaused the memory's mirror, the silver spirit disclosed calmly, as an esteemed golden spirit, you are allowed to pick memories that would define your personality. We can refine a new custom personality based on your preference. The spiritual screen next to Elder Kraken started showing thousands upon thousands of personalities. Some personalities were more ambitious and driven to succeed, while some merely desired to chill and avoid worldly matters. Some were more tuned to music and some were more tuned to sports. Whatever it was, there wasn't a single personality that was evil or just negative in general. Since no one remembered his time in the living plane, it wouldn't matter much what personality one gets, it was like everyone in the heavenly plane get a fresh start with a wholly different life. However, being given the choice to choose or even customize a personality was a great bonus. Elder Kraken took advantage of it to shape up his personality to resemble his greatly and then handed his final version to the silver spirits. He didn't want a different personality since it would conflict with his own. Are you sure? Silver Spirit asked for a confirmation after reading his weird customized personality. Because he had no clue about Elder Kraken's life in the living plane, it did not alarm him. Positive. Elder Kraken nodded. Upon receiving his confirmation, the silver spirits shrugged his shoulders and pressed on the button again. This time, Elder Kraken's face went blank as his brain started accepting new memories that gave him a name, a gender, a purpose, specific emotions, world views, and the list goes on and on. After 10 minutes, the process finally ended. Elder Kraken's blank expression was replaced by an throbbing pain in his head, forcing him to press his temples tightly. His reaction baffled the silver spirits as it was a first. *T, all the old and new memories are jumbled together. This was causing Elder Kraken's headache. Although he chose a persona almost identical to his own, he still struggled with the insane amount of new memories mixing with his old ones. Based on the happy expressions of other spirits near him after being given new personalities, it was clear his situation was unique. To avoid drawing any suspicion on him, Elder Kraken cracked a smile as well and stopped holding his head. Are you fine? Never better. The silver spirits kept scanning him for a few seconds before dropping their suspicion, knowing that they had plenty of other spirits to guide. With your soul's status, you are allowed to own a mansion in the city or build one anywhere in the heavenly plane. You are also allowed to possess a maximum of 30 spirits as servants. Silver Spirit added, the rest of the rules and society etiquette are within the intel package. You are free to leave. Without delay, the Silver Spirits took off outside the Crystal Tower, not caring any more about Elder Kraken. At least I got everything I need to know about the spirit realm. Elder Kraken thought to himself while struggling through the irritating headache. The memory was skipped entirely and was now showing Elder Kraken sitting on a bed with silk cover sheets and 3 humanoid red women sleeping around him. Their skins might be different, but they still had every other organ, including genitals. Even spirits are getting laid before me, Felix murmured, making Asna give him a scolding look. We might be spirits, but our society doesn't differ much from the living plane. Elder Kraken said. Just like he was proving his points, Elder Kraken in the screen went to clean his teeth and then exited his penthouse through a glass window while carrying a briefcase. He flew through the clouds, climbing higher and higher until he reached the top of a crystal tower. Then, he went inside and sat on a desk inside an office. Don't tell me you have a salaryman job. Thor remarked with a speechless tone. That's the job I choose to have in my personality. Elder Kraken confirmed, it's the best job for me since it provides me with a path towards joining the government. Why didn't you choose to be part of the government from the start? The real question is what government are you talking about? Elder Kraken pointed at the screen, making them understand that he couldn't answer such sensitive questions. It might seem like Elder Kraken was sharing bits here and there, but he always made sure that the intel he provided wasn't directly related to the spirit realm. Elder Kraken helped them understand by speeding the memories, showing them years and years of effort before finally being able to apply to join the government. From the following memories, they realized that the government was an entity under the direct rulership of the spirit's guardian. It allowed only gold and silver spirits to apply to join it. What are those? Felix was startled to see new unique entities that didn't share the same mold as the spirits. They resembled Japanese demons with peculiar features and bodies. Unlike the spirits, their skins didn't have one color. Elder Kraken might not have answered, but Felix soon realized that their status was immensely higher than even Elder Kraken and other gold spirits. We will be accepting only 3 golden spirits and 1 silver spirit in this hiring round. A hideous monster with giant teeth protruding from his lips remarked indifferently. He was wearing a formal suit while standing on a high platform. He was addressing Elder Kraken and hundreds of other applicants, who were standing in different lines. None of them seemed to dare lift their heads and look at him directly. How are there so many golden spirits? Candace titled her head in confusion. Felix was also taken aback by their numbers since he thought that it would be extremely rare for anyone to match Elder Kraken's achievements. The spirit realm has been existing even before Primogenitor's birth. Lord Chaos spoke, no one dies there since it's the last resting place of the dead. Lord Chaos didn't need to say more for Candace to understand his point. When it was possible for spirits to upgrade their ranking color with their hard work inside the spirit realm as well as their descendants on the living plane, it was possible for many silver spirits or even red spirits to reach gold color with enough time passing. In addition, the golden color was the highest grade rewarded for achievements and soul strength. So, even if Elder Kraken's achievements exceeded the requirement of golden color, he wouldn't be getting anything higher than it. Let's begin your first test. The hideous supervisor disclosed as he extended his palm towards a spiritual gate. It resembled a teleportation portal. From Elder Kraken's and everyone's excited expression, something was of great importance must be lying behind that portal. Unfortunately, just as Elder Kraken was about to enter it, the memories screen was closed shut. Sorry everyone, but it's too risky to show you more than this. Elder Kraken stated, Spirit's guardian is like an omnipotent god when it's related to spirit matters. He might be spying on us at this very moment through my own consciousness link without my knowledge. Felix couldn't help but gulp a mouthful at the sound of that. Every time he heard about Unigens, they always scare the sh*t out of him. Yet, when he turned to stare at Asna's lazy expression, his fear, reverence, and respect washed away. Are you really from the same breed as them? Felix couldn't help but ask as he looked at Asna. If you weren't holding me back, I would have ruled the universe. Asna retorted with an annoyed tone. Felix rolled his eyes at her overbearing statement and exited this argument before it turned heated. I wonder how does Lord Quetzalcoatl manage to reach the heavenly plane? Lady Sphinx knitted her eyebrows, did he even find it? Wait, are you telling me that Lord Quetzalcoatl might have never accessed the heavenly plane and just hangs out in the dreadful empty spirit realm? Felix's eyes were suddenly widened at the bad implication of this being true. Lord Quetzalcoatl had never mentioned anything about the heavenly plane. He merely told them that he hijacked a spirit of a newly dead person to enter the spirit realm. Then, he stole spirits from it and revived them. This could be happening to spirits in the heavenly plane or just the lost spirits. If he has never found the heavenly plane, doesn't that mean your ticket is quite useless? Candace mentioned. Not completely useless. Lady Sphinx said, he still can reach the heavenly plane if the Karen fairies picked up the spirit they hijacked. Based on what we heard, that could take forever. Felix sighed, I doubt Lord Quetzalcoatl will approve of that. Felix knew that lost spirits had their consciousness turned off, saving them from the torture of wandering through nothingness for eternity. But in their case? They would be there to feel everything. Lord Quetzalcoatl merely promised them a visit, not a jail sentence. Now that we know on our own, we have to ask him. Felix said with a serious tone. Lord Quetzalcoatl might have kept the information to himself to not piss off Spirit's guardian even more, but there was nothing wrong in having a discussion with two knowing parties. Looks like I am missing a lot. Elder Kraken smiled with an intrigued expression as he listened to their discussion. Please pardon us. We have yet to update you. Without delay, Lady Sphinx showed him a summarized version of all important events that happened to Felix, from his rebirth with Isna to the reason they awakened him in the first place. With Elder Kraken's mental fortitude, he absorbed all the information in a few seconds at best like a sponge. You have been living a very, very interesting life. Elder Kraken remarked with a fascinated tone as he eyed Felix. Clearly not as interesting as yours. Felix chuckled. The fact that Elder Kraken was mingling in the spirit realm, knowing full well that it was the afterlife, nothing would beat his experience, especially, when other spirits had not a single clue that they were dead and living in the spirit realm. After all, there couldn't be a concept of afterlife if they had no idea about their previous life in the first place. If you reached such a conclusion from what you have seen, then you will really be blown away by the real life there. Elder Kraken stated. At this point, you are just teasing us. Thor remarked with a bitter smile. Haha, excuse me. When Lord Cows realized that Elder Kraken was done sharing about the spirit realm, he looked at everyone expressionlessly and said, Thank you for your hospitality and information. Without waiting for them to reply, Lord Cows broke into a grey fog and fell back into the consciousness ocean. After he left, the conversation pivoted back to Lord Quetzalcoatl's situation. Who will ask him? Thor asked. I will handle it. Lady Sphinx stated calmly. It was of great importance to see Lord Quetzalcoatl's true destination as soon as possible. So, if what they feared became a reality, they would search for other methods to visit the heavenly plane. A couple of hours later, Felix could be seen standing in front of a mirror without cloths on. He was checking the newly added blue inscriptions on his body with a wide happy smile. After Elder Kraken knew that he desired his water manipulation, he didn't hesitate to bestow it to him. He told him that it was his repayment for waking up his wisp of consciousness. Since his life was centered in the spirit realm now, his water manipulation was useless. The only reason he didn't bestow it beforehand wasn't because of the primogenitor's pact, but simply because he believed that there was a tiny chance he might take it with him upon death. Now, I can go all out in my water abilities instead of being confined to those abilities. Felix remarked as he manifested a sphere of water on top of his palm. Water's entire advantage was its flexibility, yet, those abilities were rigid, making him unable to use them in most scenarios. Since he already mastered third stage of manipulation of his previous 3 elements, he didn't need to seal any element and start right away with his training. One of my priorities now is master the best of internal and external abilities. Felix knew that this shouldn't take much of his time as his experience with 3 elements made him somewhat of a master. Though, increasing his external manipulation was going to be a pain in the ass. So, he intended to ignore it for now until the dragon's sacred grounds open again and grind it with the rest of his manipulations and other advanced abilities. Master, did you manage to reach Lord Quetzalcoatl? Felix inquired as he wore his clothes. No. Lady Sphinx shook her head, he went off the grid again. I see. Felix sighed. This issue was really eating him, but he could only be patient and wish for the best. VRR. Felix picked up the call after seeing that it was from Olivia. We have arrived at the hotel. Are you still in my room? Olivia inquired. Felix came here to pick up Olivia and take her to Lady Yggdrasil, but he found out that she went out with Hina and Malik to tour the city. Yes, stay there, I am coming to you. Felix entered the Void Realm through Candace and emerged next to the girls, not caring about scaring the shit out of nearby pedestrians. Sorry girls, I can't take you to the first realm with Oli. Felix said. It's all right, we are having fun here. Hina smiled. If you need anything, call me. Felix patted Hina on the head since she was just as small as Olivia. Then, he picked Olivia and placed her within Candace's aircraft before jumping next to her. Felix took advantage of the ride to inform Olivia about Lady Yggdrasil's status, so she wouldn't do anything disrespectful of her. He also told her about primogenitors and the origin of her bloodline to give her a bit more context. Naturally, everything she heard had overwhelmed her since it changed her entire view of the universe. I was using the World Tree's bloodline, and I am now going to meet her. Olivia spoke under her breath with a dazed look. Just be yourself, and if everything went well, she might allow you to push to 99% in your integration and get her ultimate ability. Felix said with a serious tone, hopefully, give you a runic seed as well. Olivia was still confused about plenty of things, but Felix didn't want to lay everything on her in mere couple of minutes. He would rather not toast her brain before she meet Lady Yggdrasil. Sometime later, Candace put Felix next to the royal garden and closed the Void Realm, leaving Olivia inside. He didn't have approval of either Queen Alfreda or Lady Yggdrasil, so the moment Olivia stepped foot in the royal palace, Queen AI would report her. Felix didn't want to overstep his boundaries and start bringing his friends to someone else's home without permission. After knocking twice, the glass door was opened and Felix went towards the center of the garden. As he expected, Lady Yggdrasil was sitting under that breathtaking tree as always. Elder, I have brought you the girl I told you about. Felix disclosed as he bowed respectfully. You can leave her here. Lady Yggdrasil permitted without lifting her head. All right. Felix requested Candace to drop off Olivia next to him. The moment Olivia noticed Lady Yggdrasil, her heart started beating faster and faster in agitation and nervousness. After sensing her emotional instability, Lady Yggdrasil lifted her head and smiled kindly, You don't need to be nervous, my child, I just want to talk. Immediately after hearing her soft-spoken kind words, Olivia's heartbeats started returning to normal. Lady Yggdrasil could be considered as a goddess entity, but she really gave out a kind elderly vibe, which made anyone next to her feel at ease. I will leave you to it. And thank you, Elder, for the opportunity. Felix bowed one last time and left the royal garden. Felix. After he left, Olivia felt like she was out of her comfort zone. However, when she recalled the importance of this opportunity for her future, she hardened her heart and mind. Then, she lifted her head and finally greeted Lady Yggdrasil with a respectful tone, Olivia Maxwell, greets the World Tree Goddess. Haha, how cute, come, sit next to me. Lady Yggdrasil patted the grass near her with an easygoing expression. Olivia did as she was told even though she was still a bit nervous. Who could blame her? A few minutes ago, she didn't even know of the existence of godly beings as the primogenitors, now, she was sitting next to one. Tea. Thank you. Olivia accepted the teacup and remained quiet, having no clue what to say. So, tell me about yourself. Lady Yggdrasil smiled. Why does this look like an interview? Felix thought speechlessly as he watched them from Candace's consciousness link with the others. Although he was asked to leave them alone, he was still somewhat worried about Olivia, making him unable to sit still. Thankfully, he had other partners in crime, who were just as interested as him in their discussion. Do you think she will pick her? Asna inquired. Based on Olivia's pushover personality, doubtful. Candace shook her head. Have some faith. Felix retorted, Olivia have really changed. Olivia had truly gone through too many experiences in the past years that forced her to mature and become less of a pushover. If it were the old Olivia, she wouldn't have even dared to come here and seek a way to improve herself. I am Felix's cousin and a member of the Earthling Tea. That's not what I meant. Lady Yggdrasil interrupted before asking again with a faint smile, tell me about yourself. I. Clearly, this question had stumped Olivia as she had no idea what Lady Yggdrasil wanted to know from her. Olivia knew that she couldn't be wasting Lady Yggdrasil's precious time. So, she started getting antsy with each second going by without managing to say a single word. She already fumbled the bag. Candace said. Come on Oli, just be honest about yourself. Felix mewed. Just like Olivia had heard him, she tightened her fists and confessed, I have been always a pushover, who can't say no to no one. I disliked that about myself greatly and Felix helped me find my inner resolve to stand for myself. I thought that when I become as hardened as him, I will finally be able to walk in the same lane without making him worry about me. Olivia bit her lower lip with a wistful look, but, it was already too late as Felix had flown too high for me. Each time I see him on the screen, he would have reached a new height while I am still stuck at the same place. Olivia smiled bitterly, I just want to catch up to his shadow, so we can hang out again. That's why I didn't hesitate to accept this opportunity even though I have no idea what it is. My child, I am sorry to break it out to you, but even if you receive 10 opportunities like this, you will still not be able to catch up to that little brat. Lady Yggdrasil shook her head as she patted Olivia. Really? Olivia looked quite heartbroken to hear so. Your cousin is treading on a singular path fraught with unspeakable dangers, forcing him to always seek methods to get himself stronger. Lady Yggdrasil shared, I doubt even my daughter will be able to keep up with his progress in the upcoming centuries. So, my advice for you to focus on bettering yourself and stop obsessing over catching up to him. You will merely end up burning yourself in the process without any results. Olivia lowered her head, hiding her reddened eyes. If she had heard this from anyone else, she would have brushed it over. But when it came from Lady Yggdrasil, it was hard to look the other side. When Felix saw Olivia like this, his heart grew heavy. He could see that his insane progress was killing Olivia as she considered him as her real brother. Instead of saying anything about it, she kept it to herself and tried her best to seek ways to catch up to him. Unfortunately, there weren't plenty of opportunities for humans without proper guidance from beings such as primogenitors. Although Felix felt bad for Olivia, he had no intentions of slowing down his speed of progress. As Lady Yggdrasil said, his path was fraught of dangers and the moment he let himself go, it would be over for him. Lift your head up, my child. Lady Yggdrasil smiled, you might not be able to catch up to him, but with my help, you can leave your own mark in the universe and be proud of it. Really? Olivia's face lit up a bit after hearing so. It would be hard for her to completely give up on following Felix's tail, but if she could at least earn his respect, she would be immensely happy about it. We will see if you have what it takes. Lady Yggdrasil lifted her book and opened it again. Then, she called calmly, little brat, come out and take your cousin away. Busted. Asna laughed as she saw Felix's face suddenly turn green. He really thought that Lady Yggdrasil can't sense Candace through dimensions. Thor chuckled with the others as they returned to their poker game, having no intentions to save Felix. You guys are the worst. Felix cursed under his breath and swiftly exited the Void Realm with Candace. I was away arg. Before Felix could give out an excuse, he got whipped 3 times in the ass by a thick vine that came out of nowhere. Candace held her laughter as she eyed Felix wincing in pain while rubbing his reddened rear. I am sorry. Felix apologized immediately, this time instead of playing tricks. Your apology is accepted. Lady Yggdrasil smiled kindly, don't let me catch you spying on me again. It will never happen. Felix promised, knowing that his next punishment wouldn't be 3 whips. Give your cousin the rest of my bloodline and bring her back when she awakens, my wisp. Will do. Take care, child. Lady Yggdrasil patted Olivia one last time before pushing her towards Felix gently. Thank you, goddess, I won't disappoint you. Olivia bowed frantically with a grateful expression. Just the fact that she was able to reach 99% in her bloodline was already an incredible opportunity, since it opened her path to break through Origin Realm. Seeing that Lady Yggdrasil had returned to reading her book, Felix swiftly took Olivia outside the royal garden. How much did you hear? Olivia asked softly after they exited the royal garden. Cough, all of it. You insensitive prick. Olivia's cheeks reddened in embarrassment. Felix was the last one she wanted him to hear that. Oli, I respect your grit and desire to get stronger. Felix said with a solemn tone, but as Lady Yggdrasil said, don't put me as your goal. It's best that you put Noah as your goal, as this will help you both motivate each other to become the best versions of yourselves. As for worrying about being left behind. Felix chuckled as he rubbed her hair, you will always be my little Oli. I understand, just stop messing my hair. Olivia bared her fangs at him as she fixed her ruined hair. Felix laughed at her cute threatening glare while jumping inside Candace's aircraft. Olivia followed him in and they both returned to her hotel's room in the 9th realm. Felix handed her the remaining 24% of Lady Yggdrasil's bloodline in a bottle and said, I can't keep you in the 1st realm since the queen is quite B*tchy when it came to humans in her palace. I can't protect you against other racist high elves. So, stay here and push your bloodline percentage intelligently. When Lady Yggdrasil completely approve of you, no one will dare say anything. If you need anything, just call me. Felix affirmed, all right. Olivia nodded in understanding. She didn't ask him to stay around, knowing that Felix was too busy and had already invested too much of his precious time on her. Take care. Olivia gave Felix a quick hug and watched him depart through the void realm. After she was left all alone, Olivia opened the bloodline bottle with a resolved expression, starting the integration process right away. Olivia knew that a second better opportunity awaited her after she reached 99% in her integration. So, she refused to waste time, which might cause her to lose Lady Yggdrasil's interest in her. Good luck, Oli, let's go, Candace. When Felix saw that Olivia was starting to get undress, he stopped watching her and returned to the 1st realm, fully confident that Olivia would be a force to be feared in the future. His guts told him that reaching Origin Realm through a primogenitor's bloodline was going to break the universe. He couldn't wait for Noah and Olivia to give it a go. As for himself, Felix knew that he still had a long way to go. A couple of months later, Felix had taken Olivia back to Lady Yggdrasil after she reached 99% in her integration and unlocked her ultimate ability, the Seed of Life. Since Lady Yggdrasil was a great researcher like Lady Sphinx, she was going to handle the runic seed surgery on her own. Fortunately, the practice runs in the UVR had all come out with positive results. In fact, the experiments went even smoother than Felix's. It was quite understandable since Olivia already possessed the Seed of Life Ultimate as well as Lady Yggdrasil's bloodline, making her extremely compatible with it. After dropping her off with Lady Yggdrasil, Felix returned to his room and called Malak. Any updates on the spaceship? I have secured a well-established warships engineer from the metal race to lead the building process. Malak informed, he has already started working with his staff to create a couple of blueprints. When he finishes, I will send them to you to pick one. Good work. Felix asked again, how about the materials? Any issues? I am struggling to procure some rare materials from the Dwarven Empire. They refuse to sell them to humans, and it's quite hard to go around it without going completely illegal. I thought so. Felix frowned. The moment he got paid from the Empyrean game, Felix sent 8 trillion coins to Malik to start working on his new upgraded spaceship. It had been more than half a year now and Malik was still in the infancy stage since getting the best of the best wasn't easy, especially for the alloys created in the Dwarven Empire as they were banned to all humans. "Give me a second." Felix inquired from the Queen, "Can I use a radiant wish or a racial wish to get myself a temporarily trade permit in the Dwarven Empire? It will cost 2 radiant wishes or 5 racial wishes based on your current wishes limitations." Queen AI answered, "In addition, the permit will have only 1 month access to Dwarven Markets system." "Is 1 month permit enough to get what you need?" Felix asked. "Depends on the availability of the materials in the markets," Malik replied. In other words, if the permit was used, but there was no supply, it would be wasted, plus, even if she had a permit it didn't mean that dwarves were going to sell to her. The alliance might force them to bend their rules a little, but not force them to smile before humans and serve them. "All right, study the market and make good preparations," Felix said, "call me when you are ready to buy them." "Will do." Felix hung up the phone and exited his room, going to the Royal Training Hall for his daily class with Selfie. Time went by mercilessly, not caring about the woes of mortals. Before anyone could come to their senses, 5 years had gone by. Felix had spent those 5 years in a rigid daily routine. He always woke up at dawn and started his day with 2 hours of potion concoction practice. It might not be a lot, but his consistent efforts stacked up each day and this helped him master 3 more rank 5 potions. He was only 2 potions away from fulfilling his promise with Lady Sphinx. She told him that she would teach him how to create his own recipes, which transcend rank 5 potions if he mastered 10 of them. Felix knew that those potions were even beneficial to primogenitors and such superior beings, so, he refused to get lazy on his potion-making craft. After he finished with the concoction, he ate breakfast with the royal family to keep his bond with them as tight as possible. In fact, he had already succeeded in that as even Queen Alfreda wasn't giving him as much sh*t as before. It was quite normal as 5 years of having him hang around her was bound to change her opinion of him if not slightly. As for the rest of the royal family, Felix had already won them all as they started to consider him as one of the family. When Felix was done with his breakfast, he spent almost half of his day on his runic studies. He was going this hard on himself because he understood that he wasn't going to stay always in the elvish realms. So, he needed to get as much knowledge as possible from Selfie before he departs. Plus, he was eager to start learning either space or time spells. He was getting closer than ever as with his extreme hard work, his amazing teacher, and great talent in sensing elemental particles, Felix had already mastered a few omnipotent sand spells. To reach such a height in merely 5 years was extraordinary and would make even Selfie's cousins drop their jaws in disbelief. Unfortunately, no one knew yet that Felix could harness runes as well besides Queen Alfreda. Even when Felix took part in a couple Empyrean and racial games, he still refused to use his sand spells. That's because Felix was able to win those games with just his other strengths, he would rather not expose more than he should. Right now, Felix was ranked in the top 270 in the Empyrean rank as he had played 1 game each year, he always chose a game closest to his rank and strength. After 5 continuous victories, he was rewarded with 25 prize chests, the insane amount of game points he found inside of them had helped him pay his debt. He was saving the rest of the game points to secure one of the legendary artifacts as they weren't looking too impossible to obtain with this new win streak system. On the other hand, he played racial games on monthly basis with his team, helping him earn an mouth-watering amount of SG points for his race. Naturally, Felix's team didn't go undefeated since the game's designs sometimes screw him over when it required more than one person to finish the job. Since Felix's teammates were mere spectators, he could only take the L in those games against his will. Still, his team had a win rate of 98% in almost 80 games more or less, which was a remarkable achievement when considering that Felix was soloing those teams. With this kind of win rate, the Earthling team had already made it to the top 15 strongest teams in the universe. Felix would have climbed even higher if he didn't need to babysit his teammates, since most Empyrean players in those teams were in the top 200,300. Only the best 10 teams had top 100 Empyrean players amidst them. Regardless, Felix's efforts were celebrated throughout the Milky Way galaxy, since he helped push the human race to rank 25. He did this while there was still 3 years to spare before the Great Reset, which made everyone hopeful that he could push the race rank a couple more. But Felix didn't see it this way. His team ranked in top 15 from 100, this meant that his next opponents would be from the top 10. He refused to deal with them alone when he still hadn't even reached top 100 in Empyrean rank. So, he decided to retire from Racial Games platform in this cycle, planning to come back only if their race rank fell below top 25. At the moment, Felix could be seen sitting next to Olivia while listening to another lesson about runic techniques. "Are you getting any of this?" Felix inquired as he glanced at Olivia. "Not all of it, but it's better than the Magic Academy's professor's explanations," Olivia answered happily. For the past 5 years, Olivia had also started to shine just as brilliantly as Noah. It was for none other than the fact that she was considered as the first human to start using spells. While Felix could fight without runes perfectly, Olivia would be stupid to not use what she learned in the Racial Games. This had made her rock the entire universe and create an insane amount of buzz in the network about another human monster being born. Felix was quite pleased with this, since all the interested parties approach her to get her method of learning runes, instead of annoying him. Olivia ignored them all as per Felix's advice. Since she was given approval by Lady Yggdrasil to stay in the royal palace and even study in the Elvish Magic Academy, she was unreachable by them. With time going by, the noise and interest died down, leaving Olivia to focus on her studies in the Magic Academy. "How are you being treated there?" Felix asked. "It's all right." Olivia smiled. Felix sighed and dropped the subject, knowing that Olivia was merely saying so to not make him worry. He had experienced racism firsthand in the Witch Academy as the sole human student there, so, he knew that Olivia must be bullied senseless by those elf students. But, he would rather not get himself involved, leaving Olivia to handle it on her own. "I am not repeating this, so you better focus," Selfa warned after seeing that Felix wasn't going to speak again. "Sorry, you may con. Sir Felix, it's time." Einir suddenly spoke in Felix's mind, "I have just exited the war room meeting. They are finally planning to start hunting down gelatinous cubes and world eaters. It's about damn time." Felix smiled coldly in his mind at the news. For the past 5 years, Felix was being updated on everything ongoing in the war room. Although he received a few locations of some high-profiled war room members, he didn't make a move on them. He was waiting patiently for them to kick off their capturing mission. It finally started. "Girls, I will be taking off to handle some important matters," Felix informed with a serious tone. "I might not be around for a couple of months." "Ah, okay." Both Olivia and Selfa didn't ask him about those matters, knowing that if Felix was comfortable sharing it, he would have done so. So, they could only wish him good luck and watch him disappear inside a void rift. The first thing Felix did was meet with Einir inside his consciousness space. "Tell me everything," Felix ordered. "Arthur have created 2 capturing teams under the leadership of Miriam and the Ruiner." Einir shared, "Miriam will start first, as she will lead 800 unique void creatures to capture a newly discovered gelatinous cube in the Gura galaxy." "A new one? How big is it?" Felix asked. "At least 3 times the size of an average star," Einir informed. "That's a big one." Felix frowned, knowing that the average stars had almost the same size as the Sun in the solar system. To put it into perspective, just the Sun was 109 times wider than Earth. Felix couldn't imagine a gelatinous cube 3 times that. "This is nothing," Einir shared with a spooked tone. "I have once witnessed a gelatinous cube 100 times the size of that, He had millions of planets inside his jelly-like body. They are really cosmic nightmares. Felix remarked with a solemn expression. The fact that the Void Race members were planning to capture them and use them as biological weapons in this war made his blood run cold. Fortunately, they can't capture those super stupendous unique void creatures. Candace said. They knew that even if all unique void creatures worked together to create the biggest void rift in existence, it still wouldn't cover even 1% of the size of that gelatinous cube. So, they could only stick with the rest, which weren't as gigantic but still possess immense threat to anyone in this universe. What about the Ruiner's squad? He will be targeting a world eater. Einir disclosed with a serious tone, you might know it. It's the infamous one in Scaria Galaxy. That one? Aren't they too daring? Felix was startled. He knew that symbiote as it was one of the most popular ones in the universe. That's because it was caught in a gravitational field of a small stellar black hole and was struggling to escape from it ever since. No one knew exactly how long was that symbiote stuck there, but its situation had been turned into a tourism opportunity. It allowed tourists to see one of the scariest apocalyptic creatures in the universe in a hopeless situation, which wasn't a common occurrence. So, Felix understood that there would be plenty of eyes on that symbiote, making it extremely risky for the Void Race to attempt and capture it in front of them. Unless... Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise as he shared, Arthur uses his authority to close off the tourism site. Exactly. Einir confirmed it. Felix knew that Scaria Galaxy was being inhabited exclusively by Sage race. As the king, Arthur clearly had authority to shut down the tourism site around the symbiote until they finish with their mission. Wouldn't that raise some suspicion on him, though? Asna inquired. No one was dumb enough to believe that it was just a coincidence. Arthur already planned a way to avoid that. Einir mentioned, he is going to raid the tourists with pirates and slaughter them all. Then, he will declare the area as closed off for tourism for a few months until those pirates are caught. If the symbiote disappeared then, no one will link him with the incident. Smart? Felix agreed. Not even the most intelligent person would believe that Arthur had a hand in this since his void identity was well kept. Sages didn't possess any scroll or technology to get them rid of that symbiote. If not, they would have done so immediately since the symbiote was considered as an active danger in their galaxy. For now, we have decided to start with the gelatinous cube. Einir informed, the journey will start in 7 days. Miriam and her team will group up near their target. Good, this gives me a head start to arrive there faster than them and prepare for my move. Felix smiled coldly. Can I come too? Einir requested with a hopeful tone. Sure, but tell them that you are traveling with me towards the Witch Empire or something. Felix said, this will help raise your value in the war room as everyone will believe that you have finally earned a place in my inner circle. Most importantly, it will give you a reason to leave for Lund. It had been 5 years now and Felix was helping Einir with bits of fake knowledge about himself, so he wouldn't lose his statue in the war room, especially when it had expanded immensely with other authoritative unique void creatures. Are we departing now? Yes. Felix narrowed his eyes, it's time to take control. After 1 long month of non-stop traveling, Felix, Einir, and Candace had finally arrived at coordinates of the gelatinous cube. Although they were staying at a far distance from it, Felix couldn't help but feel awed and rattled by the appearance of such magnificent monstrosity. It was a perfectly symmetrical cosmic cube made out of pinkish jelly substance. It didn't have any facial features or anything that could suggest that it was a life form. Although its appearance resembled a cute cubic marshmallow, Felix couldn't help but feel chills running down his spine at the sight of countless planets, moons, and even some unique non-intelligent cosmic creatures being stuck inside its body. How many people do you think are there? Asna wondered. Who knows? But it has to be an unfathomable number. Felix replied with a solemn tone. He knew that gelatinous cubes were considered even more dangerous than gluttonous world eaters. That's because symbiotes at least end up exploding after absorbing more energy than their bodies could handle. On other hand, gelatinous cubes ate only things that were emitting a source of life. Instead of slowly digesting the planets and anything inside of it, the gelatinous cube put all life forms within it into an eternal slumber. Then, it feed on their dreams, hence, the name, the dreamer. Unlike symbiotes, it never let go of its prey as its jelly-like substance provided its food with immortality. It was like deep freezing someone but at the same time keeping their hearts and brains active. Naturally, such a miraculous substance was sought for by almost everyone. Unfortunately, nothing could harm gelatinous cubes besides similar monsters. As for nukes and other mass-destructive weapons, they always failed to make contact as it was believed to be covered by a permanent invisible telekinesis shield. It was tough enough to block anything hundreds of kilometers away from its body. They even tested harming it from the inside by putting a sh* load of mass destruction bombs in planets and moons targeted by them. Too bad, their attempt failed as the instant those cosmic bodies get devoured, they lose out signal with the outside. It was like entering another dimension. Do you think that Nemo can control it? Asna wondered. I don't know. Felix frowned, it's far too big, and it's risky to get close to it. Felix knew that Nemo had to be in the same dimension as the void creatures to control them. He honestly was too scared to get close to this gelatinous cube that was 3 times the size of the sun. It's best to wait until the others put it in void realm. Felix said, we can then make a move on all of them simultaneously. Without further ado, Felix brought out his dark deviant spaceship and entered it with his companions. Then, he put a reasonable distance from the gelatinous cube and activated the spaceship's amazing anti-surveillance system. This way, it would be extremely difficult for him to get found out. For the next couple of days, Felix kept his eyes glued to the window that was facing the gelatinous cube. It might be impossible to see anyone near it, but he was being updated by Einir on the situation. He was doing so through one of Miriam's teammates' stream in the war room. Don't you think that the stream will expose you? Asna frowned. Not if we made our move in the void realm. Felix narrowed his eyes, we will have a small window to enslave everyone before they emerge back to the matter universe. That will be hard. I never said it's going to be easy. Felix understood that enslaving hundreds of unique void creatures in a small period was the easy part, making them not expose anything after, was the difficult part. After all, he would be required to convince everyone to turn to his side while at the same time making sure that Arthur and the rest of the war room stay ignorant about such a mass betrayal. If his situation was picked up by Arthur, his whole plan would fall apart instantly. Miriam has arrived. Einir disclosed calmly. It's time. Felix dropped those thoughts and prepared to make his move with Nemo. Miriam, are you ready? Arthur inquired as he watched Miriam hovering in front of an army of unique void creatures. Some took their monstrous void appearances while others retained their disguises, ranging from Pandians, dragons, vampires, werewolves, and the list goes on. If someone looked at them, he would be left at loss for words at how uncanny this scene appeared. We are still missing some. Miriam shared with a charming smile, but, we can begin manifesting the void rift. Good. Start as quick as possible. Arthur stressed, we might need your team's help in taking down the World Eater. All right. Miriam sent a telepathic message to her teammates, act as we practiced. Everyone nodded in understanding and jumped inside the void realm after her. Only one vampire was left behind as he was the one responsible over the stream. It might not be noticeable, but he wasn't the AP bracelet to record what's going on. He was using another recording device that resembled a video camera. He was forced to go with this device since he couldn't have Queen AI connect him directly with this mission. The same applied to everyone involved in this mission as they were using their main bodies and consciousness, which were freed from Queen AI. Just like primogenitors, the unique void creatures mostly link their wisps of consciousness with Queen AI, so when *T hit the fan, she wouldn't have control over them. They started. Felix narrowed his eyes in concentration after spotting a vast void rift emerge in front of the gelatinous cube. It was expanding at an insane speed, making it resemble a black hole emerging out of nothingness. Still, compared to the gelatinous cube's size, it barely covered 5%. Candace opened a void rift in front of Felix, allowing him to zoom in on this expanse of darkness until he managed to spot hundreds of purplish figures. All of them seemed to have twisted expression with their hands extended towards the vast void rift. "It doesn't look like they will pull it off," Asna commentated. "I don't think they need to create a void rift with the same size as the gelatinous cube," Felix remarked. "If they managed to pull off just half of the size, their plan would work." Felix knew that the gelatinous cube and world eaters had a flexible body structure, enabling them to squeeze through tighter surface areas. As he mentioned, the moment the void rift seemed to cover half the size of the gelatinous cube, Miriam and the others stopped pushing to make it bigger and just focused on sustaining it. Slowly but surely, the gelatinous cube was edging closer and closer to the void rift. When they were merely a few kilometers away from it, the unexpected have happened, stupefying everyone. The gelatinous cube started to change its shape to a long cylinder to match the exact size of the void rift. Then, it started going inside the void realm without needing to squeeze or damage its body in the process. "They can do that," Arthur remarked speechlessly. If even Arthur, the Ruiner, and other knowledgeable ancient unique void creatures were dumbfounded by the sight, there was no need to mention the others. Who could blame them for their lack of knowledge? No one had ever seen a gelatinous cube enter a void rift or exit from it at such a drastic size. "Don't lose focus!" Miriam cursed everyone telepathically after seeing the void rift starting to deform. Her shout forced everyone to regain their concentration and stabilize the void rift. They knew that if the void rift failed at this crucial moment, the gelatinous cube would be sliced up. Fortunately, no other problems arose for the next 5 days. "Just a bit more," Miriam encouraged as she eyed the last 1% of the gelatinous cube pass over through the void rift. It might be just 1%, but it gave everyone a run for their money since their concentration was on the brink of evaporation. 5 continuous days of pumping their maximum energy to sustain a cosmic void rift had taken an immense toll on all of them. If they weren't in the void realm with infinite energy, it wouldn't have been possible. The moment everyone saw that the gelatinous cube had passed over thoroughly, they relaxed their control, which caused the void rift to start shrinking at a rapid pace before it was completely closed shut. Clap clap clap! When Arthur and the rest in the war room saw this, they applauded in celebration with wide grins on their faces. "This marks a historical day for the Void Race," Arthur proclaimed passionately. "It marks the beginning of the Void Race coming together as a single entity to fulfill our God's wish. Now, we just need to gain control over the World Eater and our army would have all 7 sins working for a single goal," the Ruiner remarked with a faint smirk. The war room had already gained control over many wrathful creators within the Void Realm. They were much easier to control since their sizes weren't as humongous as the other 2 non-intelligent unique void creatures. While they were celebrating in the UVR, Miriam and her teammates were taking a break as they watched the gelatinous cube's shape become a cube again. "Good job everyone!" Miriam wiped her sweaty forehead as she ordered, "Lighthouse Squad, you guys are up. Allow us a few minutes to catch our breath. I can't move. I am starting to regret signing for this. Stop whining and do your job before it targets the nearest planet." Miriam scolded with an annoyed tone. Knowing that the situation was serious, the Lighthouse Squad grouped up and started emitting a powerful radiation of life near the gelatinous cube. They were a bunch of jinns, who were tasked to use their wishes from the greed laws to turn themselves into a beacon of life force. Since non-intelligent void creatures were guided by life force, it made the Lighthouse Squads able to guide them wherever they desired. As expected, just like a dog smelling food, the gelatinous cube began moving towards them, ignoring the other life forms' signals from a distance. "Now, your job for the next 5 years is to guide it towards the humans' galaxy," Miriam ordered. "We know. Tisk, I just had to lose that damn coin flip." No one in the lighthouse squad was pleased by their mission. Too bad, they couldn't complain since their luck screwed them over. Unfortunately, just as they tried to guide the gelatinous cube away, their bodies froze completely as a wave of crippling terror washed over them from nowhere. When they glanced near them, they were left even more terrified by the sight of Miriam and the rest of their teammates sharing the same look as them. This familiar feeling, it can't be. Miriam mumbled while her heart was beating like a drum. When she realized that the sensation was emitting from on top, she glanced above her with great difficulty. What appeared before her scared her to the core with the rest of her teammates. No one could blame them as Nemo surfaced nearby with a behemoth size, making his bloodish red eyes illuminate above them akin to two blood moons. In this realm, where even light was absorbed, those dreadful eyes illuminated as bright as the sun. Nemo, order them to send their main consciousness inside your mind and leaves wisps in their bodies. Felix requested as he stood on top of Nemo's head with a stoic expression. Nemo did as he was told without needing Felix to elaborate further. That's because Felix had trained him for this specific moment for the past 5 years. It wasn't hard when he could recreate the same scenario in the UVR. Miriam and the others listened to his order against their will. When they opened their eyes inside Nemo's consciousness space, all of them were forced to gulp a mouthful in fear and awe at the sight of an infinite pitch-black ocean. Welcome my friends to your new home. Felix emerged from underneath the ocean while having Nemo sit on top of his shoulder. With the Kraken's passive and teachings over the past 5 years, Felix was able to split his wisp and place it inside other living beings' consciousness space. Honestly, if it wasn't for Nemo allowing it, he wouldn't have been able to invade his consciousness space regardless of what he did. Soon, Candace and Enir were seen standing behind him with faint cold smirks as they stared at their own kin without an ounce of mercy. When Miriam and the others saw them, they felt chills course on their spine. I know that you have countless questions. Unfortunately, I don't have time to enlighten you. Felix eyed them coldly and said, you have 2 choices. Either get tortured for eternity for daring to scheme against your god or switch your allegiance to me. You have 2 minutes. Felix proclaimed one last time before sitting on a pitch-black throne before them while rubbing Nemo's belly on his lap. What the hell is going on? Miriam's playful persona was nowhere to be seen as this uncanny situation completely broke her mind. Her teammates' reaction wasn't any better. The poor things were just celebrating their successful mission of catching a gelatinous cube before they got caught by another predator. A predator capable of deciding their fate with a single word. Is that really our god? Are you dumb? Is there anyone capable of removing our main consciousness and place them in his mind against our will? Miriam cursed at such a retarded telepathic message. Just the unique evil aura was definitive evidence of Nemo's identity, the fact that he could order them around as he wished was merely a bonus. Without a single second wasted, Miriam swiftly kowtowed and begged for forgiveness. Miriam greets the great paragon and wished to be punished for having ill intentions. When others saw her behave like this, they finally broke their petrification and copied her actions. It didn't matter whether one was an authoritative imitator inside the war room or a newly added member to the army. All of them kowtowed twice and remained in the same position while shaking slightly, waiting for their god to pardon them. As for the 2 choices given to them by Felix, they didn't even bother to consider them. The moment their god had resurfaced, their lives stopped belonging to them. In other words, the party was over. You may rise. Felix ordered indifferently. Although they knew that Felix wasn't the paragon, they didn't dare to disobey him since nothing made sense at the moment. Listen up, the paragon of sins is still slumbering. Felix confessed calmly as he picked the cute Nemo up. This is his future replacement. This news shocked everyone to the core, but it made even more sense than their original creator hanging around with a human in a shape of a raccoon. This made some unique void creatures to feel somewhat conflicted since Nemo wasn't their creator, but the majority had one similar reaction. A chance. Miriam's eyes lit up at the thought of being subordinate to the new paragon of sins while he was still in growth process. Damn it, that SL*T Candace has been around him for a long time. Miriam got irked at the sight of Candace smirking at her, realizing that her chance to be number one subordinate was already taken. Just like her fears were proven right, Felix announced nonchalantly, "Candace will be responsible over all of you. Her words must be treated if they were said by me. All of you F***ers are still in probation. I don't mind thinning the herd by removing some fools, who refuse to understand their place." Felix had no intentions of being nice to them from the very start. He knew that the only reason they were behaving was due to Nimmo. If he wanted them to truly respect and treat him as their king, he must show them that he wasn't to be taken lightly, otherwise, they wouldn't try their best to adhere to his orders. "Candace, they are all yours," Felix said as he retreated to the back, allowing Candace to establish her dominance over them. "Firstly, the Paragon has already freed you from the oath taken to keep the war confidential," Candace shared composedly, "so, you don't need to worry about banishment in case you spoke to us about the war." Everyone believed her as Einir was the perfect evidence. They always saw him hanging around them and feeding them garbage while he was, in fact, a double agent. Secondly, you can't keep your bodies inside the Void Realm for long, as this will draw suspicion from the others in the war room. Candace narrowed her eyes dangerously, "So, I want you to behave as normal and keep this development to yourselves. To motivate you to make your best effort, I want you to swear on oath on the Paragon right this instant." The moment they heard so, everyone's expressions changed drastically for the worst. In the case of Einir, Felix didn't force him to make such an oath since he was much easier to handle and manage than hundreds of unique void creatures. He knew that everyone would never consider betraying Nimmo, but with the oath involved, they would go an extra mile to avoid exposing him. In addition, this oath would help him free their main consciousness from Nimmo's mind without worrying too much about their betrayal. "I swear upon the great Paragon of Sins to remain as his loyal and trustworthy subordinate until death do us apart." Miriam was the first to take the oath, knowing that she needed to make herself stand out from the rest to gain Felix's trust. "Good." Candace eyed everyone coldly, "What are you waiting for?" Without delay, Miriam's teammates shouted out the same oath simultaneously, fearing that if they hesitated for another second, they would be picked up and made an example of. Tisk. They were completely right, as Candace was slightly annoyed that no one tried to act too smart, making it hard for her to install even more terror in them. "Now, leave wisps of your consciousness here and return your manes in your bodies," Candace ordered. "We will carry this on after we deal with the war room." Miriam and the rest did as they were told without any complaint. When they opened their eyes back in the Void Realm, Miriam stated coldly, "You heard her, act normal. If you can't, you can F***ck off right now, and I will cover for you." Since unique void creatures were known to be individualist, the war room wouldn't be too weirded out by some heading out first after succeeding in their mission. However, no one moved a step. There was no way they could show themselves lacking while Felix and their god were still watching. "Lighthouse Squad, keep up your work. The rest, let's return," Miriam commanded as she exited the Void Realm. "They are out." Arthur smiled widely as he looked at Miriam and the others regrouping near the vampire, who was still streaming. One of them beamed a humongous spaceship nearby, and they all went inside to facilitate communication with the war room. "The gelatinous cube is in its journey towards the humans' galaxy." Miriam spoke towards the camera with her usual playful smile. "How is the Ruiner's mission going?" "Great effort everyone." Arthur praised them first before mentioning, "The pirates have just begun their slaughter. It will take some time before we can make a move." "I see." Miriam proposed, "How about we come to help him out?" "I don't need your help," the Ruiner remarked with a cold expression. "Hold on a second." Arthur interjected, "You have seen how hard it was for them to capture the Dreamer. With more numbers, we can deal with the World Eater in less time." "I said I don't need it." The Ruiner glared at Arthur, "Don't make me repeat myself." "It's all right, Arthur." Miriam smiled charmingly, I guess we should make a move on another target. Since you are already in Gura Galaxy as a team, how about you capture a dozen more wrathful creators? Arthur suggested. What do you say? Miriam looked at her teammates. I am out, I need to return to my post before my absence raise suspicion in my pack. A golden-furred werewolf shook his head. Likewise. I am down, I don't have much to do at the moment. Some imitators and jinns rejected the invitation while most void succubus and annihilation fiends had no problem with the new mission. Since no one here could be forced to do anything, Arthur and Miriam allowed them to leave. Call me if you have any updates. Arthur wished them good luck and closed off the stream to switch focus on the Ruiner's mission. After he was gone, everyone sighed in relief. Abruptly, Felix and his clique appeared amidst them through a void rift. Good job everyone! Felix smiled with a satisfied expression. He watched the entire interaction while analyzing Arthur's face. It didn't change at all, making him understand that no one had behaved in any way to raise suspicion. Especially you. Felix praised as he eyed the breathtaking Miriam, an excellent control over the conversation flow. I don't deserve such a high praise, I am only doing what I can. Miriam blushed, making Candace and the other void succubus to roll their eyes at her attempt to charm Felix. Felix smiled faintly as he requested, please follow me. It worked. Damn it. I should have given it a go. He's still a human and can be easily won over through his sexual desires. The other void succubus all started having weird thoughts of making moves on Felix after seeing him take Miriam away. After they reached a private room in the spaceship, Miriam thought to herself as she glanced at Candace, he must have grown bored with Candace already. If I took advantage of my... Before she could finish her sentence, Felix asked with a serious tone, I have heard that you have a big portion of the Dwarven Empire under your control, mind telling me more? *tch, you thought. Candace snickered as she eyed Miriam's dazed expression. Miriam snapped out of her daze swiftly and spoke with an enticing tone, what do you want to know about it? How much control are we talking about? Felix inquired. Besides the Emperor and his officials, I have control over most of the upper echelon. Miriam shared. Why haven't you targeted them? Felix frowned, I believe you can easily turn them into your sex slaves as well. I can't. Miriam shook her head, all of them are wearing legendary artifacts that protect their mind against my mental attacks. I see. Felix nodded in understanding. It was normal for the Emperor and his officials to be protected heavily from any kind of danger. He believed that most of them should be donned from top to bottom with ancient and new legendary artifacts since they didn't desire money from selling them. Plus, I would rather not push it too far lest I irk Elder Cyclope. Miriam added. Doesn't she know that Elder Cyclope has already forsaken the dwarves? Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise. Must be. Candace agreed, I also didn't know about it until we met him in person. For normal people, they had no clue about Cyclope and his involvement with the dwarf race. In the case of the Void race, most of them saw it with their own eyes or at least heard about it. After all, they existed before even the dwarves or other new races were born. The only reason they never seemed to grow or change was due to their limitations imposed on them from birth. Is there a problem? Miriam hardened her expression, if you want I can give up on a few slaves and attempt to enslave them. No need. Felix waved his hand and asked with a serious tone, can you get me large quantities of elemental minerals? Yes, but is that all? Miriam titled her head in confusion. What else can you get? I can get you epic and even some legendary artifacts. Miriam smiled, my slaves have some as heritage from their ancient families. Oh ho, mind showing me a list? Felix grinned faintly. He wasn't concerned with stealing them from their owners since they were already enslaved by Miriam. Just like the great commander of the Guardian Empire, they would do anything to please her even if it meant giving up their most precious treasures. Damn, All of them are weapons. Felix remarked after seeing 3 holographic artifacts. One was a sword, the other was a spear, and the last one was a bow. Soon, he shook his head as he closed the list. He wasn't interested in all of them since he already had his crescent battleaxe. How about you give one to Noah or Olivia? Candace suggested. Olivia is using her mutation as her wand while Noah utilize his claws as his weapons. Felix knew that both of them had their own fighting style, and he would be merely ruining it by forcing them to use a legendary artifact that didn't match it. Plus, it would bring them trouble if they ever got recognized carrying it. After all, Miriam had control over a few authoritative dwarves, not the entire race. For those legendary artifacts used as family heritage, everyone would realize that something wasn't right when they see them in the hands of Olivia and Noah. You can leave them their legendary artifacts. Felix requested, how about epic graded ones? Without hesitation, Miriam displayed a new list with tens of epic artifacts. This time, Felix was extremely pleased by a dozen of names. Just like he was window shopping, he kept swiping anything he liked to a holographic cart. There were epic artifacts in the shape of jewelry capable of boosting his mental defenses and attacks. Some jewelry provided with extreme elemental resistances and some were even capable of having the owner stay permanently invisible. There were even multiple armors each with different strengths and weaknesses. Felix picked what he felt would be beneficial for him and his friends, then, he sent the shopping cart to Miriam, "Get me those, please. I will keep it in mind when I return to the Empire." Miriam nodded with a delighted smile. In her eyes, nothing mattered at the moment besides gaining a solid place next to Felix like Candace and Einir. "How about the elemental minerals? Get me as much as you can." Felix stressed, the rarer, the better. Having Miriam by his side really relieved him from dealing with dwarves personally. For the past 5 years, he kept using his wishes from the racial platform to buy temporarily trade tickets for Malak. She used them to buy whatever materials were requested from the spaceship engineer. To completely take advantage of the temporarily trade tickets, he also requested her to buy him rare elemental minerals for his dragon cultivation system. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to procure a satisfactory quantity or quality since she was always forced to use the black market. The dwarves refused to sell her in the public markets due to her race. She couldn't even hire someone from another race for the task because they required to sign contract for each large trade. Obviously, one of the contract's terms was to not sell or give them to a human. Hence, Felix had been struggling for a while now with the resources for his dragon cultivation system, leaving him stuck in the second dragon mark. "If that's all you need, consider them done." Miriam smiled charmingly as she boasted, "One of my slaves controls the largest minerals market in the Empire. You are really a lifesaver." Felix's eyes lit up. "It's nothing." Miriam winked at him seductively, "I live to serve my master in any way he desires." "Candace, please slap this B***tch for me," Asna requested with an irked expression. "Slap." Without an ounce of hesitation, Candace appeared in front of Miriam and slapped the light out of her, leaving her utterly stunned. "This is from Madame Asna." Candace sneered as she eyed Miriam, "Behave yourself when you are before her husband." Miriam licked a drop of blood from her wounded lip before lowering her head in front of Felix, "I apologize for overstepping my bounds." She was familiar with Asna as she saw her hang around Felix in a couple of viral videos in the network. But, she never thought that she would have this kind of authority in Felix's affairs, believing that a girl with such an obvious fake artificial goddess-like beauty must be just a booty call. Alas! She couldn't be more wrong. "You are excused." Candace sent Miriam away and turned to Felix with a solemn expression, "You must be careful with this vixen. She will try everything to get what she wants, even if it means slaughtering an entire race." "I am a fair person," Felix stated nonchalantly, "if she proves to be useful to my plans and end goals, then she can be a vital subordinate besides me. As for her ambition, I don't give a shit as long as she doesn't betray me." Felix chuckled as he glanced at Candace. You are the one, who should be feeling threatened by her, not me. It was clear that Miriam was gunning after Candace's position since she was the spokesperson for him in matters related to the void race. So, he didn't really need to worry about her but Candace. She can try. Candace scoffed. She wasn't even upset by what Felix said. In her eyes, it was only normal for Einir or another void race member to replace her if she outshone her too much. So, to avoid losing Felix's favor, she wasn't planning on lazing around and make sure to get the best out of her duties. I will start by sorting their identities by their importance. Candace informed, I will call you if I found something interesting in their identities. All right, good luck. Felix nodded, knowing that a lot of work awaited her. Even though the others didn't have the same authority and reach as Miriam and Arthur, but they had diversity on their sides. Felix understood that each imitator and void succubus must have their hands in some sort of racial political scene. By adding them to his side, he would have moles spread out through the entire universe. We need to get moving towards the World's Eater before the Ruiners team start their mission. Felix glanced at Einir and said, You are up. Einir's eyelids twitched as he jumped inside the Void Realm and turned himself into an aircraft. He had seen this day coming ever since Candace was promoted. As for Candace, she preferred staying with Miriam's team to keep an eye on them up close even though she could just as easily meet them all inside Nemo's consciousness space. Only the Ruiner and Arthur are left. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly, the moment I enslave them, I will own the entire Void Army. 1 month later, Felix could be seen sitting next to his spaceship's window while staring at an astronomical pitch-black blob. It was deformed in the shape of a long pencil suspended in nothingness. The cause of the deformation was nothing but a horrific and mystifying dark hole in a distance. Its surrounding gravity was so terrifying, even light was unable to escape from its gasp, managing to create a halo around it. How will they displace it in the Void Realm? Asna wondered, it can't move an inch even if it wanted. I don't know. Felix guessed, maybe split it into smaller portions and join them in the Void Realm. Unlike gelatinous cube, symbiotes were known for being extremely flexible due to their ability to separate big portions of their bodies and still live like nothing happened. If those portions were near each other, they would join together to become whole again. If they didn't, they would go on separate ways and keep absorbing energy until they grow back to their original size. You are right, they have made up their minds to try this strategy. Einir confirmed after hearing the War Room's discussion. When are they starting? In a few days after the news died down about the pirates' attack. Einir said. I see. Felix smiled bitterly after being reminded of that slaughter. He had seen the abhorring damages done by the pirates to those poor innocent tourists. It stung him even worse to know that it was happening but still not able to stop it. After all, he couldn't risk having Arthur be skeptical about a spy amidst his army before he enslaves everyone. Felix understood that if he screwed this up to save a few lives, the war might end up happening much faster and even more innocent civilians would be caught in it. It's all because of those Darkin faction bastards. Felix didn't even blame Arthur for all of this since he knew that if it was up to him, he wouldn't have even taken part in this war and just kept living his life as normal. Though, the same applied to the rest of the unique void creatures as only a few of them took part in this for the sake of entertainment and creating chaos like Miriam and the Ruiner. The rest were all either threatened by having their identities exposed or completely isolated from the void race and hunted down if they ignored the war calling. If unique void creatures were really so evil and didn't care about anything, they would have already set the entire universe in flames before going down with it. Let's see how they will react when we turn this against them. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly as he waited patiently for the Ruiners team to make their move. 5 days later, Felix was sitting on a throne on top of a platform while having Nemo nesting on his lap. He was inside Nemo's consciousness space, where he grouped all of his enslaved void race members. Right now, he gathered them all underneath him. At the front of this army, the Ruiner and Miriam stood side by side. Both of them had a look filled with reverence as they eyed Nemo. Yesterday, Felix made a move on the Ruiners team after they successfully transported the World Eater to the Void Realm. Just like what happened with Miriam, no one dared to oppose Felix after Nemo showed them his true colors. Even the Ruiner was forced to lower his head without feeling his pride wounded. After all, how could he flaunt his pride before his own creator? As for Arthur, he didn't catch anything peculiar again when the Ruiners team resurfaced. Since he was honestly terrified of him, he didn't dare to ask him too much about the mission and just sent him off. With all of you here, I believe I have gained control over 98% of the Void Army. Felix remarked calmly. 97.5% to be precise, Master. Miriam interjected, I have the entire list of everyone in the army as I am responsible over the recruitment. Right now, we are still missing members, who were too busy to join the missions or those responsible over controlling the wrathful creators. I see. Felix said, my main priority at the moment is to capture Arthur, the others can easily be handled. Does anyone here knows his real location? Candace asked. Everyone started looking at each other with ignorant expressions, clearly having no clue about such key intel. Even Miriam and the Ruiner seemed irritated by their inability to answer. I wish I knew where that coward is hiding. The Ruiner shook his head, the only intel I have is that he has a clone with a wisp of his consciousness in his palace. Likewise. Miriam nodded. Felix frowned in displeasure at everyone's inability to help. He thought that at least one of those hundreds of army members would have a small piece of information on Arthur. Unfortunately, even the imitators and void succubus in the Akkadian Empire were clueless about Arthur's movements. He doesn't trust anyone, so it will be difficult to get him to confess about his location even if we spent millions of years with him. Enir said. It wouldn't have been possible for him to reach such a height without being this vigilant. Felix sighed in frustration. He had a strong feeling that Arthur's main consciousness must be hiding in the Void Realm or in some unknown place that was simply impossible to guess. Can our Paragon command him through his wisp of consciousness? An imitator in the form of a spirit fox inquired with a curious tone. What a blasphemous question! The Ruiner glared at the spirit fox murderously. You dare suggest that our god has such limitation? I didn't mean it that way. The spirit fox started shaking in her boots after seeing everyone giving her a nasty stare. Settle down, everyone. Felix calmed the angry mob while massaging his temples. The spirit fox's suggestion was already in his mind as he had a strong feeling that Nemo could take control over Arthur through his clone. However, at the same time, it wasn't tested since all the unique void creatures he took control of had their main consciousness involved. He knew that wisps weren't the same as the main since they could easily have their link separated in a split second. It's too risky to try it without testing it. Felix glanced at Candace, let's give it a go later. Are you sure? Candace's eyes lit up. Positive. Felix smiled. If it wasn't for fearing that Asna would discipline her, Candace would have jumped in Felix's embrace and give him a big kiss. Who could blame her? Choosing her for the test implied that Felix finally trusted her enough to let her main consciousness exit his mind. Though, Felix was still smart enough to have her swear an oath on the name of the Paragon to never betray him. After all, Felix also didn't like giving out his complete trust to anyone. Still, Candace was pleased about it as she could finally regain control over her main consciousness. I will be right back. Felix said before switching to his main consciousness. He was sitting in his spaceship while flying at a moderate speed towards the capital planet of Akkadian Empire. Candace jumped from the Void Realm and sat next to him. How are we going to do this? Felix knew for the test to produce the right results, Candace needed to have a clone as well. I can make my own clone as long as it is temporarily. Candace shared as she stood in front of Felix and separated her body into half. Then, both halves transformed into twins. This is great, why is it temporarily though? Felix wondered. I am not made of the exact substance as symbiotes. So, my body can't support itself for long unless it was complete. Candace clarified. I see, I guess Arthur isn't using this method of cloning then. Most definitely. Candace nodded. Alright, it's best that you send your main consciousness away. Felix requested, try your very best to destroy your link when Nimmo makes his move. Candace did as she was told and sent her twine inside the void realm. This created a similar scenario when Felix make his move against Arthur. Nimmo, I want you to order her to not break her link with the main consciousness. Felix spoke as he brought Nimmo in front of his face. Since this command was quite complicated, Nimmo was confused at first. Fortunately, the training in the past 5 years made him even more receptive to complex orders. So, it took Felix merely a couple of minutes before Nimmo understood his request. Nimmo faced Candace immediately with his diabolical shimmering red eyes and gave her the command telepathically. After he was done, Candace realized that she couldn't kill off the wisp, which would separate the link. It worked! Candace exclaimed in delight. Good, good, good! Felix grinned widely. With this, even if Arthur was hiding at the depth of the universe, he will still get enslaved by me. Without delay, Felix beamed his spaceship in his spatial cart and continued his travel with Einir and Candace through the Void Realm. By the way, how many wrathful creators did Miriam's team catch when you were with them? Felix asked Candace. I separated from them after they caught the second one. Candace shared, I hate to admit it, but Miriam had everyone under her control without needing me. Isn't that better for you? Felix chuckled, you were able to catch up to us instead of babysitting them. Well. Candace agreed with him inwardly. The only reason she stayed with Miriam's team was to keep an eye on them in case things went chaotic due to losing their main purpose. However, Miriam still retained her authority over most of them, making her handle them without needing anyone. How about the Ruiner's team? Einir wondered. Yeah, I doubt anyone will dare flinch when he is in charge. Felix smiled. Felix was quite pleased with the Ruiner and Miriam for the simple reason of leaving him unbothered by having such a massive army made out of disordered proud individuals. He really thought that he would be forced to keep using Nimmo constantly to keep them under control. Some time later, Felix could be seen sitting next to Asna in his consciousness space while having Candace's vision mirror in front of them. What was shown on it was a mesmerizing futuristic metallic city that was built on a massive sky platform. The platform was being lifted by gigantic towering metallic pillars. Although the sages used scrolls to get rich and secure their position in the top 10 most authoritative races in the alliance, they didn't utilize scrolls to shape up their culture. After all, scrolls could be used only once regardless of their rank. Since those scrolls were refined out of the world tree sacred wood, it was seen as a massive waste of finite resources to use them wantonly. If Queen Alfreda knew that the King Arthur was a void creature, I doubt she will continue her historical trade with them. Felix chuckled. It was known knowledge that the Taylism race and Sage race were in a lifelong partnership with the elves for the sake of obtaining some of the world tree's sacred wood. They need the wood to make brushes, scrolls, and talismans. Fortunately, the talismans and scrolls were easily made by abundance from the wood since they were just paper. In return, the elves receive scrolls and other noteworthy benefits. I doubt she has such authority. Einir said, Mother Tree was the one enforcing that those two races will always receive portions of her fallen dead sacred wood. Oh, I didn't know that. Felix expressed, but, I can see it happening. Lady Yggdrasil is extremely generous and wish that her runic teachings spread far and wide. I still have no idea how those three races can have different utilization of the runes. Asna asked with an intrigued tone. She was always weirded out by the notion that such a universal system could have limitations on each race. For example, elves could only use wands to write runes in the air. The other two were allowed to write runes on paper. Even then, there was still limitation imposed on the Taylism race as they were the only ones capable of using their talismans. Lady Yggdrasil believes that the divine codex written on their DNA is responsible over this. Lady Sphinx answered, it must not be as complete as hers. Doesn't that mean Felix and little Oli can create scrolls and talismans as well? Candace raised an eyebrow in surprise, knowing that those two owned the complete version of the Divine Codex on them. Obviously. Lady Sphinx confirmed. Felix wasn't really too surprised by this piece of information, he already had a strong feeling that he could do that, but he never bothered to think deeply about it. After all, he already had too much on his plate and he knew that if he added learning even scrolls and talismans, he wouldn't master anything. So, he intended to dive in this subject when he at least mastered a couple of time spell. When we catch Arthur, you will have the best scrolls inscriptor as your subordinate. Candace giggled, he will easily teach you about their system when you are interested. I know. Felix grinned faintly. Unbeknownst to the fate awaited him, Arthur was reading invisible holographic documents in his office while drinking a cup of red coffee with one hand and eating a croissant with the other. He was pressing on the documents with his remaining two hands while thinking, should we focus more on voidlings or the dreamers and symbiotes? Voidlings makes the most mess while the other two causes the most destruction. Only 5 years left before the deadline. I can't have everyone running from a galaxy to another to capture them in groups of hundreds. Arthur frowned, most of them will start throwing a fit. It's best to propose a limit on the dreamers and symbiotes, so there won't be much pushback. Arthur massaged his eyelids, this is too tiresome when I still need to deal with my own empire. Too bad, Arthur knew that he couldn't turn back even if this got out of hand, his identity was on the line after all. Fortunately for him, he had a clone to handle the empire business and while his main consciousness was dealing with the war effort. Knock knock. Come in. King Arthur, your attendance is requested in the Great Sage's Council. A beautiful blue-skinned woman informed. What now? Arthur knitted his eyebrows. I was told that the Great Master Pantheon have managed to create a new legendary defensive scroll. He did? That geezer really never knows when to quit. Arthur replied with a delighted tone, you can go, I will be there in half an hour. After the door was closed, Arthur's delighted expression was replaced with an irritated one. Just great, we will be spending days celebrating this with annoying rituals and promoting it all over the universe. He might have copied everything about being a sage, but he still was an imitator at heart, who didn't give too much of a crap about scrolls. At least, ones unrelated to him. Let's get this over with already. Arthur fixed his attire and walked to his office's door. However, just as he wanted to reach to the door's handle, he felt chills envelope his entire soul as he stared at two brilliant red eyes emerging out of small void rift. He didn't know what were those eyes, but his soul quivering in fear, made him realize that he was dealing with an unordinary intruder. What is this? I can't control my body. Arthur shouted with a fearful tone in his mind as he watched his body moving towards the expanding void rift against his will. Without any noise or mess arising, Arthur stepped inside the void realm and the rift closed behind him. To be exact, he stepped inside Candace's aircraft body since his clone wasn't immune to void energy. Hello there! Felix greeted with a faint smile as he looked at the frozen horrific expression of Arthur. Impossible! The instant Arthur saw Felix's face, he felt like his plans were crumbling before him, especially when he saw Einir next to Felix, making him come to the conclusion that Einir had betrayed them. He is under an oath. How? How? The cogs in Arthur's brain kept turning rapidly, hoping to find a logical explanation to any of this. Nimmo, order him to get his main consciousness here. Felix requested, not caring about the mental meltdown of Arthur. Nimmo merely looked at Arthur again, making him order his real body to log out of the UVR and come here. This scared Arthur ** less since his hidden real body was always his safety net against any harm that befell his clone. The Paragon? Impossible. Albeit late, he finally placed his entire focus on Nimmo, allowing him to sense his unique aura. I am done for. Unlike what Felix thought, Arthur didn't even bother to separate his link with his main consciousness. Just like the others, he knew that his life stopped belonging to him the moment he met the paragon. He recognized that if he attempted to separate the link, his identity as the king of sage race could be considered as over. How about we go meet your friends? Felix smiled. Before Arthur could react, his wisp of consciousness was transported forcefully inside Nemo's mind. The moment it materialized into Arthur, he opened his eyes to the sight of his entire army chilling in a small-sized town made out of black buildings. Everyone turned to look at Arthur with mocking expressions, seeming like they were enjoying his dumbfounded expression. "Welcome, leader, to your new home." Miriam giggled after teleporting next to Arthur. "Miriam, please tell me I am dreaming." Arthur mumbled as he kept looking around him with a disbelieving expression. "Dreaming? Shouldn't you be excited? You are inside the mind of the future paragon of sin." The ruiner snorted in disdain. "I knew that a phony like you cares only about his identity and cozying with the alliance instead of fulfilling your real duty. Easy on him, ruiner." Felix appeared next to Arthur and patted him in the shoulder. "He is just a bit overwhelmed." "He better be." The ruiner threatened with a murderous look before retreating. "I want everyone to group up in the throne chamber in 2 minutes." Felix requested from Miriam, "Update him on the situation before the meeting." "With pleasure." Miriam smiled charmingly and dragged Arthur away. Although the meeting was going to be held in 2 minutes, everyone had already teleported to the throne chamber and took their seats. Just like Felix's consciousness space, Nemo's had been getting some modifications to help everyone live in order. After all, they would be here for a very, very long time. It was best to build a small town to help them keep their sanity. In a short while, Miriam, the ruiner, and Arthur were seen standing next to Felix's throne. Arthur still had a bewildered look, but it wasn't as bad as before. Miriam did an impressive job telling him everything that he needed to know about Felix, Nemo, Candace, and even what happened in the missions. This allowed Arthur to be even more convinced that his fate was in the hands of Felix. As much as he was disheartened by this, as an ambitious imitator, he was able to focus on the silver lining. "Now that everyone is here, we can finally discuss some important matters," Felix said with a solemn tone. Everyone's expression turned serious, knowing that Felix was finally going to address their future. "Firstly, there will be a new societal structure that follows a strict hierarchy system. I can't allow you all to keep running freely while being attached by mere strings of authority above you." Some reacted excitedly to the news while some felt their hearts fall to the bottom of their stomach. They knew that a hierarchy system would limit their freedom immensely since they would be forced to respect those above them at all time. This would be helpful to strong, intelligent, and authoritative individuals like the ruiner, Arthur, and Miriam. After all, they would finally have real authority in their hands to command those underneath them instead of making requests and hoping that they would agree. The structure will be split into prisoners, citizens, officials, councilmen, spokesperson, king, and lastly, God. Felix explained, "Everyone will start above prisoners. However, if you broke the rules, you will be demoted into a prisoner." "What rules?" Miriam inquired. "I will be forwarding them to you after the meeting," Felix answered before continuing, "Prisoners will receive punishments appropriate to the level of rule they broke. Citizens will be considered as the working force and the soldiers, you will have jobs that befit your level of influence in the alliance. Officials are considered as the managers and captains, each official will be responsible over a specific number of citizens. Officials also have grading system that starts from 1 to 9. The higher the official's grade, the more citizens and important responsibilities will be under him. At the same time, he will have the highest possible hierarchy achievable based on his performance." "What does performance mean?" one of the imitators asked with a solemn tone. "Is it implying management performance or outside performance?" "Management performance," Felix answered. "Outside performance will play a role in your ability to be promoted to a councilman or not." Everyone nodded in understanding. They recognized that Felix implied the influence of each unique void creature in the alliance. In other words, if an imitator worked really hard and got himself promoted to the upper echelon of a high-ranking race like dragons, it might help him secure a councilman position. Speaking about councilmen, I have chosen 4 for now depending on their level of influence on their respective kind. Felix disclosed, the Ruiner will be a councilman representing the Annihilation Fiends. Miriam will represent the Void Succubi. Arthur will represent the Imitators. Last but not least, Einir will represent the Jinns. No one had any complaint about the first 3 since they were considered at the top of their specific sin. However, Einir's announcement had made many Jinns displeased. My king, I am extremely appreciative of helping our race finally get some integral structure, however, I don't think it's a good idea to play favorites right from the start. Arthur advised with a solemn tone. Will you look at this sleazy bag? Asna rolled her eyes at Arthur's ability to roll with the flow whenever it benefited him. He was just sobbing and wishing that all of this was a dream. The moment he realized that his position in the Void race was established from the head start as a councilman, he swiftly began counseling. It looked like majority had agreed with his take as almost everyone was giving Einir nasty stares, feeling like he didn't deserve any of this. In their eyes, the F*er was just lucky to have met Felix earlier than them and become his double agent. Any one of them would have done that as well. I know. Felix smiled. Einir will be just acting as a temporarily councilman until we identify the most worthy Jinn for representation. That's an impressive thinking. Arthur praised shamelessly, already starting with licking Felix's boots. It looked like everyone was satisfied with Felix's decision since it was more fair this way. Alas, before they could gloat at Einir, Felix mentioned, when Einir get replaced, he will be considered as the 5th councilman. He will be responsible over matters related to wrathful creators, symbiotes, and the dreamers. I will do my very best to live up to the expectations. Einir expressed with a faint smug in his face as he eyed everyone. This time, even Arthur couldn't say anything negative about Felix's decision since no one was here to defend those 3 retarded unique void creatures. Felix moved on before anyone opened his mouth. For the spokesperson, it will be Candace. Felix narrowed his eyes. She has the highest authority after me. So, treat her orders like they came directly from me. Just like Einir, Candace was also not fit for such a high position over everyone. However, no one fought against it, knowing that Candace had spent more than a decade with Felix. He trusted her more than anyone for such a position. Obviously, I will be your king, but you can refer to me as Sir Felix. If it wasn't for keeping the integral structure of this new society intact, Felix would never call himself a king, as that make him cringe really hard. Alas, the Ruiner had a different opinion. I dare to catch anyone call you that. The Ruiner glared coldly. You shall call him your majesty, or my king only, understood? Yes. Everyone shouted back without an ounce of hesitation, not caring about Felix's deadpan expression. When he looked at the Ruiner, he gave him a thumb up with a faint proud grin like he was telling him that he got his back. Whatever. Felix sighed in exasperation and dropped the subject, having a strong feeling that everyone was more scared of the Ruiner than him. In every race and society, there must be a god. Felix picked Nemo from his arms while standing up, then, he pushed him high above everyone and ordered with a stern tone, kneel before him. He didn't even need to order them, as the moment everyone spotted Nemo, they all went a step further and kowtowed without an ounce of hesitation. Even Arthur, Candace, and Einir joined them. When Nemo saw everyone like this, the only reaction he showed was tilting his head in confusion. He had no clue that the Void race had finally taken their first step to building their society because of him. A society that could be considered part of the strongest top 3 races in the entire universe. A society that was going to spread terrors through the entire universe. From henceforth, we are called the Void Nation. Felix announced thunderously. Everyone felt shivers coursing in their spine at the thought of finally having a society and a nation, which they could always refer to it as their home. Besides the Annihilation Fiends, who were too proud to admit that they were alone. The rest of the unique void creatures were living lives of solitude while mixing with other races. They might be born out of evil intentions, but most of them merely wanted to live their lives in the best possible fashion. If it wasn't for so, Arthur wouldn't have been trying his best to keep pushing the sage race forward even though he was merely an outsider. But now? They finally had a true nation, which they could feel a sense of belonging to. Our first agenda as a nation is to teach the Darkin faction a grave lesson, Felix stated coldly. Everyone was startled as they knew what that implied. Are you sure about this? Arthur gulped a mouthful. Won't the three primogenitors retaliate against us if we attacked their races? I believe you have recordings of your first meeting with them. Felix remarked calmly, as long as we have evidence that they were the ones starting this whole thing, then we will always be in the right. If they dared make a move on us when we are in the right, Lord Cows will make them regret their choice. Lord Cows is this active on our side. This news had taken Arthur and the rest by surprise. Honestly, Felix wasn't that confident in Lord Cows standing up to him if the three primogenitors decided to attack him personally. But as he said, as long as they were in the right, he wouldn't need to worry too much since the primogenitors' council would also be on his side. Leave primogenitors matters to me. Felix expressed composedly, you just need to focus on creating a plan to bring ruins to their descendants. Felix knew that starting this war was going to result in many lives being lost, especially the vampires, Astrians, and gremlins. But his heart wasn't moved at all to feel merciful or forgiving. How could he feel this way when the Darkin faction wanted his entire race to go extinct? He was certain that those three races were going to join the Void race in the war to facilitate their extinction. In addition, they were already responsible over eradicating Hormungandr and Thor's descendants. In the case of Hormungandr, the half-serpents still existed but in such a low numbers, his legacy could be proclaimed as gone. As for Thor, his descendants had utterly disappeared out of the radar. So, why would Felix be sympathetic when he knew that his race's fate could end at any given moment at their hands due to the Darkin faction's enmity? We don't really need to change anything from our previous plan. Miriam shared, we just need to increase our recruitment since we have three main targets now. We need to add many wrathful creators. Arthur frowned, those three races have many other allies, which will come to their rescue. So, we need to attack them as well simultaneously to give them a reason to not help out. That's smart. Felix nodded. Obviously, vampires, Astrians, and gremlins had a solid alliance between them due to being in the same faction. This forced them to help each other out regardless of what. However, they also had contractual allies that were more focused on business side. Still, those allies would be forced to help them out due to the contract. However, Arthur knew that their contracts had clauses that allowed them to ignore their allies' pleas. One of them was if they were also under attack. He was certain that those shrewd politics would take advantage of it. We also need more symbiotes and the dreamers. Arthur coughed as he eyed Felix, without offense, but I was preparing to catch only 2 of each sin, and it will be enough to deal with your 3 superpowers in your galaxy. I understand. Felix's eyelids twitched, knowing that even that number was more than necessary. After all, it only took 1 symbiote to completely erase planet Earth or any other capital planet in the Milky Way galaxy. To make matters worse, there was nothing to do about it but initiate a wide immigration to a different planet. How many do we need against them? Felix asked. I suppose 6 will be enough to at least destroy their capital planets and a couple more high-ranked planets. Arthur answered. Make it 10. Felix said calmly. But I understand that you are worried about hearing complaint from the citizens. Felix spoke indifferently as he looked below him at his army. It's different now. If anyone dares to ignore your orders, don't hesitate to demote him to a prisoner. After they read the punishments involved, I guarantee you that no one would like to be demoted. I will make it happen. Upon hearing so, Arthur smiled confidently again. As for the recruitment, I want you all to inform everyone about the Void Nation and the Paragon's return. Felix stressed, naturally, don't spill such information before making them swear an oath to keep the news to themselves. I doubt anyone will dare reject the invitation this time. Miriam smiled bewitchingly. As the one responsible over the recruitment, she had gone through many rejections. It came from unique void creatures, who were already living in solitude without any relation to the alliance. As a result, she couldn't threaten them with exposing their identities or such. Let's say that someone was daring to reject our invitation. One of the jinns inquired from below, how do we move on from there? Simple, tell them that when the new paragons reclaim his rightful position and godly prowess, they can forget about existing anymore. Felix replied nonchalantly. Everyone smiled coldly after hearing so, knowing that this would solve their recruitment problems instantly. By the way, what about our identities? Arthur asked with a hint of concern in his voice. As the king of the sage race, he knew that the moment he launched his attack on Darkin faction descendants, he would be exposed right away. This would happen to quite many imitators, void succubi, and jinns. The three primogenitors will definitely give away our identities to their descendants to expose us. Einir supported. So what? Felix shrugged his shoulders carelessly. Felix's nonchalant reaction made Arthur and the rest a bit peeved. In their eyes, Felix had no idea how much effort they invested in their identities to reach their current heights and influence, especially Arthur. Before they could feel too upset about it, Felix added, "It will be wonderful to keep your identities intact, but you should realize by now that even if you lost them, it wouldn't matter that much. You guys are now part of the Void Nation and this isn't just a nickname to be used in secret." Felix smirked coldly, "When we are done with the war, we will join the alliance from the front door." What? This news had truly caught everyone off guard as even Candace had her mouth slightly open in shock. Joining the alliance as a race? Doing so after starting a freaking universal war? It was insane just to think about them, don't even mention actually proposing them. Why are you guys taken back? The Ruiner expressed indifferently, "You think they will dare reject our application?" When it was put into this perspective, everyone realized that the alliance would actually be the one inviting them to join. Especially, if they managed to destroy 3 strong races in the top 30 without needing any help. Other races' main priority would be to avoid antagonizing them lest they target another race. The best way to do so was to clearly include them in the alliance as a race and a superpower to be feared. So, stop getting fuzzy about your identities. Felix remarked, "It won't matter if you lose them, you will be still living just as better when we establish our dominance." Arthur and the rest felt like a heavy burden get lifted from their backs at the sound of that. Still, most of them were planning to defend and protect their identities to the end. After all, the societal structure in the Void Nation depended heavily on the influence they have on other races, at least for now. This will be all. Felix clapped twice. We have discussed our general direction in the future. In the upcoming months, we will be starting with picking up the officials. I want each councilman to recommend 20 officials from their own kind. Felix stated, Candace will pick the ones she liked and forward them to me for one final review. Everyone got agitated and eager to get picked up, knowing that it would get much harder to be promoted to an official after the foundation was created. In other words, this was the best opportunity to secure a good social rank from the get-go. We are tight on time, so we have only 3 months to pick officials and also the citizens under them. Felix suggested carelessly, make some challenges like who will recruit the most or something to decide. Candace, you take care of this. Just as Felix was going to switch to his main consciousness, Arthur requested with an embarrassed tone, "May I return to my clone? I need to be in a council." "You may leave." Felix excused him, knowing that he was talking about the Sages' Council. He wasn't worried about him running away since he had him make an oath just like everyone else. "Thank you so much," Arthur assured, "I will be leaving another wisp here after my main consciousness." Before he finished his sentence, Felix was already gone with Nimmo. Shall we discuss the rules now? Candace smiled playfully as she sat on the throne in place of Felix, not caring about anyone's irritated looks. As the spokesperson, she was the most authoritative individual in the Void Nation belong Felix, and no one could take it away from her unless she messed up big time. Half a year later, Felix could be seen sitting on the floor of his room in the Elvish Royal Palace. He was surrounded by a mountain of brilliant shimmering colorful minerals. All of them were rare elemental minerals, which were given to him by Miriam. She kept her word and delivered the epic artifacts as well as an unfathomable quantity of rare elemental minerals. Because she had complete control over her sex slaves, she wasn't imposed with the problem of being forced to sign a contract that banned her from giving those items to Felix. Honestly, she wouldn't even be put in that situation in the first place if she used her main consciousness, which wasn't involved with Queen AI at all. The only ones struggling were the others, as everyone was forced to wear an AP bracelet before trading with the dwarves. There was no way around this unless both the dwarf seller and the buyer weren't wearing AP bracelets. This was a whole different situation since legitimate dwarf sellers were also forced to be wearing AP bracelets to have licenses and such. That's why Malik was forced to keep visiting the black market since it was the only place where both the sellers and buyers prefer keeping Queen AI outside their trades. Tax evasion. Unfortunately, the quantity and the quality weren't as good as getting them from a legitimate market. If the black market didn't possess such a low threat, it wouldn't have been kept around for this long. All in all, there was an entire complex system revolved around the trading system in the dwarves' empires to make sure that humans wouldn't get their hands on their stuff by any means possible. Their grudge was burning that hot to shut down any discovered loophole. Fortunately, Miriam was above the system due to her unique situation, allowing her to get Felix what he desired and even more than he desired. Naturally, Felix was buying those elemental minerals even though Miriam wanted to give them to him for free. His reasoning was simple: he wanted a steady flow of elemental minerals for a very long time instead of abusing those poor sex slaves. He wanted to avoid making Miriam pay for them as he refused to owe anything to anyone without any reason. I doubt you will be finishing your stock even if you spent years eating them like this. Asna chuckled as she watched him chew on those minerals like candy. I don't mind, they are delicious compared to the shitty taste of natural treasures. Felix replied as he gulped down a mouthful. Felix was pleased for the past months with his new stock since it helped him finally start pushing his way through the Dragon Second mark. Since he was getting 20k BF increase for each mark, he was hopeful that by the time he finishes with his stock, his strength would have reached at least 350k. That's an astounding boost to his strength, which would help him a lot in the upcoming war. Speaking about the war, Felix currently had many invisible holographic screens in front of him. They were reports on the development of the Void Nation as well as the war's effort. In a mere half a year, we have already doubled our nation's numbers and captured additional 2 dreamers and 3 symbiotes. Felix smiled. When there is order and structure, everything turns smoother and more efficient. Although Felix knew that the first couple of months were somewhat chaotic due to his Void citizens' inability to listen to someone else's orders. But, after many insubordinate individuals were demoted to prisoners and everyone saw the horror of the punishments involved, no one dared to misbehave anymore. That's because the punishments were carried by none other than Nimmo. Since he was their god and was capable of manipulating even their thought process, it was easier for him to make them feel the most agonizing pain in their lives for as long as he desired. It didn't matter if they were at the edges of the universe or nearby. So, instead of fighting against the system, everyone decided to strive harder to push their social rank higher than the others. The only way to do so was by finishing their tasks given to them by the officials. VRRR. What's up? Felix inquired after he was video called by Arthur. Your presence is requested in the war room, my king. Arthur spoke with a solemn tone. On my way. Felix nodded and logged in swiftly, knowing that Arthur wouldn't request him personally unless an emergency was in place. In a few moments, Felix appeared on the head chair of the war room's table. There was already everyone there. Because of the new structural system, most of the war room previous members were demoted to officials, leaving only the councilman and spokesperson to have enough authority to attend war room meetings. The only new addition to the war room was the Jinn councilman, who replaced Enir of his duties. He was called Mammon, the greed demon. He enjoyed an infamous reputation that had died down in this new era because he went into solitude millions of years ago. When Felix heard of the tales pertaining to Mammon, he hesitated if it was a good idea to add him to the Void Nation. Who could blame him? One of Mammon's most infamous tales was causing an extinction of 2 ancient civilizations. He played with the greed of the top upper echelon of both nations, fulfilling all of their wishes simultaneously. To make matters worse, Mammons used his wishes not on himself but to help fan the flames of hatred between those 2 nations until the day it consumed everyone, leaving only Mammon to enjoy the fruits of his elaborate manipulation. For such a real evil unique void creature, Felix felt that it was best to keep him at his side and under his control than remain in his solitude. So, he accepted him in the Void Nation and gave him a councilman position. After all, most of the jinns feared and respected him. My little ones have reported that they have noticed an abnormal movement in our target's armies. Mammon shared with an expressionless face. Unlike most jinns, he still retained his ghost form, making it extremely difficult to read his featureless face. Same as my sisters. Miriam supported. Even you? Felix said as he looked at Arthur. Arthur nodded and said, my spies have brought me news that the armed forces of our enemies have increased their war drills as well as recruit more soldiers. In addition, the armies started to receive more investments to bolster their space fleets and weaponry. I see. Felix frowned. Is it safe to assume that they are doing so in preparation for the universal war? There is no other reason. Candace approved. I didn't think that the primogenitors will inform their descendants this early about the war. Enir noted, aren't they worried about alarming other races, making them subjected to suspicion when the war kicks off? It's doubtful that other races will realize what's going on. Arthur expressed, their preparation are on the down low and extremely secretive. If it wasn't for our people being the best at spying, we wouldn't have caught on. It was quite understanding as the Void race were capable of spying through the Void realm. There was no need to mention the already established Void succubi, imitators, and jinns in the inner circle of those races. Well, their preparation is going to make it needlessly difficult to take them down if we give them more time. Felix commentated, I believe that the 3 primogenitors have told them that the war won't start until another 4 years or so. Are you saying that we should strike preemptively? Mammon asked calmly. Yes. Aren't we going to catch them preemptively anyway due to their ignorance about our switch of allegiance? Miriam wondered. I know, but it won't be the same. Felix clarified, they might not expect our strike on them, but they will be certainly prepared for the war to arise at any given moment at that point. He is right. Arthur approved, if we struck just 1 year earlier, we will catch them still amidst their preparation. I believe most of their planetary fleets and space fleets will be still doing drills. It was just 1 year in advancement, but it would result in an utterly new result, a better result. If we are going to strike earlier than planned, then how about we do it right after the Great Reset? Candace proposed with a faint smirk. Everyone raised an eyebrow in surprise at her suggestion. They were pleasantly surprised since they knew that the SG Alliance was always its weakest after each Great Reset. That's due to the reshuffling of ranks of each race, causing their benefits to either improve or reduce. Though, we will have only 2 years at best of preparation before the Great Reset. Felix eyed them with a serious look, do you think you will be prepared enough to pull it off? If we managed to triple our numbers in 1 year, hitting 2,000 citizen, I firmly believe we will be ready by the Great Reset. Arthur confirmed confidently. When he was first given the order to start a universal war in less than a decade from the 3 primogenitors, he thought it would be close to impossible. After all, he knew that unique void creatures were individualistic, and it would be difficult to bring many of them aboard. But now? He was feeling more confident than ever after order and structure was built for him. How about you guys? Felix looked at the others. If even the pessimistic Arthur is like this, you don't have to ask us. The ruiner replied with a noisy gruff. As he mentioned, everyone else seemed quite comfortable by the notion of starting a war in merely 2 years. Good luck then, and call me if you need anything. Felix cracked his neck with a solemn expression, I need to prepare myself as well. Felix wasn't delusional enough to believe that the war was going to end without casualties from his side. After all, those 3 races had other monsters leading them without mentioning the primogenitors. Just the 3 leaders of those races were enough to make Felix feel nervous about dealing with them. Who could blame him? Duchess Alina of the vampire race was ranked 12 in the Empyrean rank. Felix knew that with his current strength, he was barely capable of dealing with those ranked in the top 100. So, he really needed to step up in his preparation to bridge that gap as fast as possible. I need to learn at least 1 space or time spell before the start of the war. Without further ado, Felix contacted Selphie and requested that she meet him in their practice hall. Some time later, both of them were seen sitting in front of each other while sharing serious expressions. You aren't ready? Selphie said. We won't know until we give it a try. Are you questioning my teachings? Selphie pouted, clearly upset that Felix didn't believe her. But, she couldn't scold him for it. That's the last thing I will do. Felix smiled, your teachings in the past years have already proven to me that you will be the best spellcaster in the history of the universe. Felix wasn't saying so to butter Selphie up or take advantage of her feelings to him. He truly believed that even if he spent most of his time on just mastering runic spells, he would still not surpass Selphie if she kept going at this pace. His affinities to space and time might be higher than her, but her talent in runic understanding was just on a different league than him, even when he possessed the real divine codex. But, I really feel like I am ready to give space-time spells a shot. Felix requested sincerely again, please give me a chance. Why are you rushing? Selphie sighed, everything was going great just a few days ago. I can't tell you, but it's something serious, and it requires me to have as many weapons as possible. Felix answered. Something serious? Is he preparing for a new dangerous adventure or attempting to push his rank? Selphie thought with an alarmed expression. Selphie knew that with Felix's current strength, there shouldn't be many things that make him feel weak. Unfortunately for her, he didn't want to speak about it. I don't know what you are preparing for, but if you really feel ready to learn those highly complex runic spells, then we can give it a go. Before Felix could feel delighted at the news, Selphie added with a hardened expression, however, if you failed to learn 1 spell in a single year, we will return to our previous schedule. I understand. Felix nodded with a firm look. He knew that Selphie didn't want to make it impossible for him as she simply requested that he learn 1 space-time spell instead of mastering it, there was a huge difference between them. All right, we will start with a lesser space spell. Selphie informed, space is less complex compared to time spells. So, you might learn and master a space spell in less than 4 years. 4 years. Felix was slightly taken aback by her conclusion, not knowing whether she was underestimating his affinity to space runes or she was on to something he was ignorant about. She is generous for giving you 4 years. Lady Sphinx said calmly, you will understand when you see what you are dealing with. Before Felix could reply, he was forced to focus on 4 giant holographic pages filled with clustered runic letters. We will start with the most basic space spell in terms of complexity. Selphie said as she pointed at the top of those holographic pages. When Felix glanced there, he murmured a single word with chills coursing on his spine, teleportation. Yep, you will be learning teleportation. Selphie extended her hand at the holographic pages and said, this is the activation sequence for it. As you know, to learn a spell, you need to rearrange the spatial runes around you in this exact order in less than a second. To master it, I need to do it in less than a 0.1 second. Felix gulped a mouthful as his widened eyes kept looking back and forth on those pages. There were so many runes in them, Felix couldn't even read them in one go. He was always told that rare elements were extremely complex in terms of runes and that only a selected few throughout the history of the universe were capable of wielding them. Yet, he always had some misgivings about their complexity due to self-spamming time spells faster than he could use even a greater sand spell. Only now did his eyes were open to the dreadful truth. The easiest F***ing space spell had more than 95% of runes than the hardest omnipotent sand spell he mastered. This is why I wanted you to master a few more omnipotent sand spells. Selphie said, their complexity might not come close to this spell, but the more you master, the firmer your foundation will be when you start with rare elements. I appreciate your care, but I can't delay this any longer. Felix shook his head after regaining control over his emotions. So, what if things were difficult than he believed? Felix didn't reach this far by being fearful of challenges. As you wish. Selphie expanded the first holographic page and explained, the reason most rare elements spells are unbelievably complex is because they are a concept that has a tremendous effect on the universe. You see, a fireball spell merely requires you to create short runic sentence of the fire particles to manifest a ball of fire. But in the case of space, if you want to create a spatial ball, it's almost impossible without creating a runic book with thousands of pages to make it happen. The same applies to time, life, death, creation, illusion, and destruction spells. Selphie asked, why do you think so? Felix thought about it for a few moments before finding the connection between those elements and the difference they had with other elements. They are close to a concept instead of an element. Felix answered, it's hard to control concepts without having the energy to support it, so, it requires much more work to achieve the same result. Exactly. Selphie approved. But, isn't charm a concept while void isn't? Felix frowned. Doesn't that mean charm spells should be just as hard to master like space-time while void elements should be as easy as other elements? Charm is also a concept and can be derivative from illusion. To create impossible spells like charm spheres will be considered a challenge too. Selphie explained, however, the rest of spells that harness the true power of charm can be easily mastered since their complexity can never be on par as these mentioned rare elements. After all, there is simply no way to compare the results of using a teleportation spell to a charm spell. When Felix thought about it closely, he understood her point. Concept elements were neither energy-based like electricity, gas-based like fog, liquid-based like water, or solid-based like earth. However, there were degrees of complexity to each concept based on its involvement and effect on the universe. For example, space spells were capable of affecting the fabric of the space while illusion affected the reality itself. On other hand, charm's effect were basic and non-threatening on a universal scale. In other words, an omnipotent charm spell would probably require merely half a page of runes to activate them if the spell itself didn't push the boundaries of the concept too much. Meanwhile, an omnipotent space spell capable of opening wormholes or such would need hundreds of runic pages to pull it off if the spell respected the boundaries of space concept. Since void element is an energy-based element, it will be easier to create void balls and such, but the moment I attempt to learn void rift or void blink, the complexity will jump through the roof and match other rare elements. Felix asked, am I right? Yes, but not completely. Selphie added, even creating void balls will be more complex than some greater spells from common elements, that's because the energy itself is unique and more complicated than fire or electricity. I see. Felix understood what she meant as void energy was one of the few energies capable of deconstructing matter to nothingness. There was no way it could be compared to fire or lightning. This was the reason void element was considered a rare element even though it wasn't a concept. Everyone knew where to get it and how to get it, yet no one could. Charm element might be a concept, but its resources throughout the universe were accessible as there were many natural treasures and elemental minerals with charm-based effects. Even charm elemental stones were obtainable in the right environment compared to other rare concepts, so, it was ranked as uncommon. If it suits you, we can start with void spells. Selphi proposed. You told me your runic familiarity with void element is on the same level as sand element. So, you might master many lesser void spells in a few years at best. No. Felix declined while thinking to himself, I have enough void users under my command. It was stupid to waste his time on learning void bombs and such useless spells when he had an army of void creatures. I want to master teleportation. Felix narrowed his eyes. With such spell, I can dominate the battlefield. Alright, but first you need to understand the basics of space. Selphi defined composedly, space is the boundless three-dimensional extent in which objects and events have relative position and direction, within an area of one's choosing, including an area and whatever is inside that area. In other sense, mastering space means mastering the plane of which everyone exists on. We are lucky that the space worm race aren't evil and uses their space manipulation for the benefit of the Alliance. More likely we are lucky that most of them worships money. Felix's eyelids twitched after recalling Bodadai and his other interactions with space worm race's businesses. All of them wanted money and had no qualms with ripping people off with their services for it. They weren't nicknamed as Wormpires for no reason. Speaking about that fatty, Felix had long since freed his exclusivity with Bodadai, allowing him to start working as a delivery worm for his subordinates and his friends. After all, he couldn't leave him to starve to death when he started using Candace for his deliveries. Though, Felix was still waiting for Bodadai to pass the promotional exams and become a universal delivery worm. Too bad, that fatty was failing his yearly promotional exams even with all the help provided by Felix. In the case of teleportation, you will be able to teleport by depleting the space from point A to point B, simply choosing to occupy a different space. Selphi clarified, in other sense, your body will remain the same, but the space in those 2 points will change. This allows you to teleport other objects and even other people if you desired. For a lesser spell, it really is on another level compared to omnipotent sand spells. Felix remarked with astounded expression. Let's see if you can learn it then. Selphi said as she beamed a pencil, I want you to memorize all the runes and attempt to cast the spell on this pencil. You should know that you can modify the distance of the teleportation as well as other details. I understand. Without delay, Felix memorized 4 pages of the runes as well as their structure, then, he closed his eyes and began reading each page, sentence by sentence, to thoroughly understand them. It's really like computer programming. Felix thought with an odd look, each sentence is responsible over a role in manipulating the spatial particles. This sentence should be the one I need to modify for the teleportation distance. Soon, Felix found a runic sentence that was missing a word. Felix thought about it for a second and then wrote 3 meters while using the runic letters correspondent to the distance. Naturally, he also modified the direction of the teleportation and marked the 2 spots where it should occur to be exact. He understood that when it came to space spells or even manipulation, precise coordinates were required if he didn't want to lose the pen in a different dimension or such. Only after setting the parameters of the teleportation did Felix begin attempting to connect with the spatial runic particles around him. Well, that was quicker than I thought. He commentated with a surprised expression as he looked at the dense grey spatial runic particles stacked all over the place. He already got connected. Barely half a second passed. Even Selphi was taken back when she saw Felix's change of expression. She was already told by her mother that Felix's runic familiarity to space-time rivaled her. Still, she always had doubts about it, finding it hard to believe that a human would possess such a high familiarity to both rare elements. I was called a freak by everyone due to my high-time runic familiarity. Selphi thought to herself as she observed Felix, what does that make him? At the moment, Felix wasn't thinking about his extraordinary runic familiarity as he was struggling to copy and paste the 4 runic pages and activate the teleportation spell. God damn it, how is this so hard? Felix cursed as he kept failing to form a single page of runes. Every time he pulled it off and attempted to focus on the second page, the first one broke into chaotic letters again and mixed with chaos. The fact that his entire vision was covered with spatial particles runes made it extremely difficult for him to recover the broken page again. How the hell does Selfie do this in less than 0.01 second? The more Felix struggled to constitute a single page, the more awed and jealous he became of Selfie's talent. He realized that his high runic familiarity had simply given him the key to the door, he still needed to push it open. Sadly, no matter how hard he tried, the door refused to budge. 3 hours later. Huff huff. Felix could be seen lying on his back while breathing ruggedly and having sweat cover his entire forehead. Selfie crouched next to him and smiled charmingly near his face. How was it? You really are a freak of nature. Felix expressed with an irritated look. He wasn't annoyed at Selfie but at himself for failing to construct barely 2 pages in the past 3 hours. It might not seem like that bad, but one shouldn't forget that the requirement to master a spell was less than 0.1 second to be viable in combat. In the case of Felix, he had to do it in less than 0.01 second while amidst a battle, so his channeling wouldn't be interrupted by his monstrous opponents. Come on, get up. Selfie giggled at his comment and helped him up. Then, she asked, how far did you go? Barely 2 runic pages. Felix sighed, it's hard to keep my focus on 2 pages at once while constructing a third one. That's where practice comes. Selfie said, if you are serious about mastering this spell, you need to spend at least 6 hours a day on repetitive construction of those runic pages until you start doing it in less than a second. I don't want you to even succeed in teleporting the pencil if it meant doing it after 6 hours or more. Selfie added. I understand. Felix nodded. There was no point on focusing on teleporting the pencil if the time was enough to get himself killed 1,000 times over. If this is the base difficulty of space spells, I can't imagine time spells. Felix asked as he looked at Selfie, mind enlightening me? Nope. I am not a bad person to ruin your motivation like this. You should know me by now. Felix smirked, the more challenging it is, the more motivated I get. I am still not telling. Selfie chuckled and walked away from him, keep practicing and call me when you are tired, you still need to learn many other techniques. Fine. Seeing that she exited the practice hall, Felix was certain that the difficulty should be bone-chilling since time spells are 1 grade above space spells. Yet, Selfie was already mastering greater spells and in merely a few years. Well, I might not be as talented as her, but I am the best at non-stop grinding. Felix cracked his neck and returned to his seated position. Without hesitation, he restarted constructing those pages, not allowing it to dishearten him from pursuing the runic system. That's because Felix was great at one thing, and it was responsible over making him excel all this time. The moment he learned and mastered something, his experience and hard work cover up for his talent, allowing him to increase his speed in learning similar things. In other words, Felix was confident that the moment he mastered the teleportation spell, the duration to master other lesser space spells would be halved. The duration would keep reducing until he actually starts to learn space-time spells at the same rate as Selfie. After all, he owned the most important key, freakishly high runic familiarity. After Felix finished with his practice, he exited the practice hall and returned to his room, not bothering to call Selfie to teach him other techniques. At the moment, his mind was consumed with learning teleportation spell. If Selfie was generous by giving me 4 years to master teleportation, then I really need to come up with something to step up my game. Felix pondered as he sat on his bed, I know that grinding as many hours as possible a day will probably help me master teleportation before the war starts, but I can't invest 24 hours on a single spell. Felix might be focusing primarily on runic spells at the moment, but it didn't mean that he had forgotten about his elemental abilities. He was still investing at least 3 hours a day to master the advanced ability lightning transmutation. So far, his development had helped him be able to transmute an entire arm into electricity. Thus, breaking his daily routine for the sake of one spell wasn't an ideal solution. I need a new way to facilitate the process. Felix thought out loud, should I concoct potions to increase my concentration? That will help, but only temporarily. Lady Sphinx disclosed, you should be careful using such potions as your brain gets easily hooked on them, and when it builds an immunity to their effect, you won't be able to function as good as before. That's true. Felix sighed, knowing that potions were like drugs in this aspect. So, he decided to stay natural and keep thinking of other methods to assist him. After spending a few minutes suggesting ideas and shooting them down, Felix finally came up with one that made his expression lit up. How about I split my consciousness into a dozen and connect them with Queen AI with their own AP bracelets? Won't that allow me to at least grind the teleportation spell and reduce the time I construct the 4 pages? Well, it might work since you are doing it in the UVR, and it's mostly a mental training instead of practicing to connect with the runic particles. Lady Sphinx nodded in agreement. Felix hadn't thought about this before, since training in the UVR was useless compared to doing in the real world when it comes to matters related to elemental particles. However, Felix's current practice was mostly focused on enhancing his concentration to construct 4 runic pages as quickly as possible. It required none other than repetitiveness until it was burned into his subconsciousness. This process would work just as better in the UVR since Felix didn't suffer from the main issue of most elves: increasing bad runic familiarity. The UVR was unable to help anyone with this since it required elves or Felix to connect with the runic particles in the real world to get more familiar with them. But, Felix's runic familiarity to space-time was already extremely freakish, helping him skip straight to the grind. There is only one way to find out. Eager, Felix swiftly beamed a box filled with Nth-generation AP bracelets capable of morphing into anything. Then, he turned most of them into jewelry, such as a necklace, earrings, and mostly rings. Since he wasn't fan of jewelry, he made them basic and mature. Then, he used his passive to split his consciousness into a dozen wisps and placed them inside his mind with his tenants. Next, he connected each one with an AP bracelet and made them log into the UVR. After grouping them in his UVR's private room, all of them knew their purpose and started practicing right away while sitting in a long line in front of Felix. When Felix joined them, he couldn't help but grin from ear to ear at the sight of spatial runic sentences being formed line by line in front of each copy of his. Felix was excited because he knew that the moment he absorbed those wisps back to his main consciousness, all of their experiences would become his. This translated to the success of the experiment. It's really like an industrial factory. Asna commented with a soft chuckle, you might master teleportation spell in less than 6 months if you only did this. The best part is that I can use my time efficiently on other matters as well. Felix laughed in excitement, feeling like he had discovered the greatest hack to runic mastery. He knew that this method wouldn't have worked on his elemental manipulations or abilities creation since they require him to truly be connected with the real elemental particles instead of virtual ones. On the other hand, the runic system required that only in the initial connection establishment, which he had no problem with. You should have done this years ago. Candace remarked in his mind, I believe you would have learned many more sand spells. Not really. Felix shook his head. My sand runic familiarity is miles away from my space-time familiarity. So, I was going to be forced to keep practicing in the real world to enhance it for each spell I master. So, it would have helped just a little for each spell. Felix still berated himself. What you should have said is that this method would have helped me with potion concoction at the fair least. This was the only regret that Felix had, as he could have spent those past years having a copy of himself concocting potions in the UVR since Queen AI could imitate even the dark reaction. The best part? He could leave Lady Sphinx to teach his copy everything in the UVR. When he absorbed his wisp back on, all the experience would transform to him again. So, Felix was quite dissatisfied with himself for not figuring this out much sooner. I believe you can even learn scrolls inscriptions and talisman inscriptions using this method. Asna suggested. Felix stopped moping about himself instantly after hearing her proposal. You're right, scrolls inscriptions and talismans inscriptions are more or less the same as the elves' magic system. Felix's eyes widened the more he spoke. As long as I can learn how to inscribe living runes on scrolls or talismans, the grindy repetition process can be outsourced to my factory in the UVR. Felix understood that scrolls and talismans inscriptions relied on another different system that require understanding of something called living runes. However, he was never scared of learning about it. The only reason he refused to learn scrolls and talismans was because he knew that his time would be stretched far too much when he started practicing inscriptions. He asked Arthur about them a long time ago, and he was told that each engraved spell on a scroll required a painful process of repetition to succeed in making just one. So, he gave up on them at that moment, but, if the repetition issue could be solved with his copies in the UVR, then he could become a great inscriptor. Moreover, he possessed freakish familiarity to space-time elements, so he could create scrolls with their spells and sell them to anyone he wanted for utilization. The universe will really go mad if a space-time inscriptor have emerged. Asna remarked, even the primogenitors will desire to buy scrolls capable of casting such a high-leveled spells. That's true. Fenrir nodded, even I will want to get my hands on scrolls with greater time spells. A scroll to turn time back will be godly for anyone. Ha ha ha. I can't wait to start ripping them off. Felix laughed loudly, feeling immensely excited by the future prospects. Just a single idea had opened tens of gates before him. Unfortunately, before he could get too hippie about this, Lady Sphinx had to bring him back to reality. You still need to learn how to conjure living runes, inscribe, and seal them in scrolls in the real world. I suggest that you leave this until you at least mastered a couple of space spells first. This will help you greatly when you attempt to inscribe them into scrolls. Lady Sphinx advised. You're right. When Felix thought about it, he realized that Lady Sphinx was talking sense as always. If he decided to learn runic inscription right now, he would be required to invest an extensive amount of time in the real world. When he learned it and began to inscribe spells, he would be able to work with only the mastered spells in his possession. That's because it would be immensely much easier than doing it with a new unfamiliar spell. Even the time required for practice would be reduced drastically. If so, it was best to bolster his arsenal with space-time spells first before becoming an inscriber. This would be the most efficient use of his time and resources. After all, those copies weren't permanent and infinite since they require mental energy, and it was a finite resource that was hard to recover. He was still not at the same level as Lady Sphinx, who could have hundreds of wisps of her consciousness placed permanently in perfect copies of herself. So, the plan forward is this. Felix noted down, use one wisp for my potion concoction. The others will focus on helping me master at least 4 space spells in the upcoming years. After the war, I will be free to invest my time in scrolls inscription. Felix grinned widely, and then start ripping primogenitors of their ancient treasures. Time went by in a jiffy for everyone involved in the war preparation. Felix blinked his eyes and found himself half a day away from the Great Reset. Is everything ready? Felix inquired as he eyed his councilman in the war room. We are waiting just for Lighthouse Squad N9 to guide Symbiote N5 to its position. Arthur informed. How much will they take? Half a day at best. Good. Felix smiled coldly, let's give them one last festival to participate in. The day of the Great Reset was always celebrated by every race as it was considered a national day for the Alliance and everyone in it. Tell everyone to stay in their locations. Felix ordered before exiting the meeting room. After he logged off, he walked towards a window in his spaceship and gazed at a tiny scarlet shimmering planet from a distance. This was Linoliv, the capital planet of the Bloodstone Monarchy. Duchess Alina, Marquise Sebastian, and every other important vampire reside here. Felix decided to come here personally and contribute to the war instead of hiding in the Elvish royal palace. You don't need to make a move with us. Candace sighed, you will just put yourself in unnecessary danger. We already talked about this. Felix frowned. We might have enough foot soldiers to drown them, but we are lacking strong monsters capable of dealing with the king's queens and their guardians. Felix knew that the top 1% of those three races were the real problem, as the voidlings one wouldn't be enough to threaten them. If he wanted to completely win this war, it wouldn't matter how many soldiers he killed, it would be over when the heads of the snakes were taken care of. It would be impossible to slay them when their numbers were stretched too wide. After all, there were barely 3,000 in the Void Nation at the moment. For each symbiote and dreamer to become vital in the war, hundreds Void citizens were required to open a Void rift big enough for them and keep it open for many days until they exit the Void realm. Since they have 10 of those two monstrous bioweapons, even if all of them helped, it would still not be enough to open Void rifts for each one of them at the same time. This forced them to use just 3 at the moment of their strike, focusing on just the capitals. As for letting those bioweapons out in the matter universe for days or weeks before the attack, this was going to alert their targets. It would thoroughly ruin their advantageous position. In addition, each of those bioweapons required lighthouses squads to keep them under control, which was an additional lose of many capable jinns. The same applied to the tens of wrathful creators. All in all, the logistics to take care of those 3 bioweapons were too much and had reduced many of the army's forces. The Ruiner will handle the Istrian's Empress Uris, and her guardians. Mammon and Miriam will work together to deal with the Gremlin's King Teardog. Felix mentioned calmly, it's only proper for me to deal with Duchess Alina. Although Duchess Alina was ranked 12 on the Empyrean rank, Felix wasn't as scared of her as before. He might not be confident in dominating her, but he had a firm belief that he could assassinate her successfully. With his hack to the runic system, he had learned much more than anyone could anticipate in the past 2 years. At midnight, the atmosphere throughout most cities in the UVR was lively and bustling with festivities. Fireworks exploded in the sky continuously with different congratulation wishes. The greatest festivities were held in the Milky Way as everyone was celebrating their new rank in the Alliance. It was finally secured that their rank would be 25 for the next decade and receive the appropriate benefits of such high rank. It was quite understandable for everyone to be happy, since taxes would be reduced on the commoners while the big shots would earn even more money from the Alliance. So, no one was bitter at all. Since Felix was single-handedly responsible over this, his name was being chanted and cheered throughout every city. Toasts were done on his name and many kids born from this celebration would definitely be named after him. Yet, Felix wasn't participating in any party, even the one held by his own Earthling team. How could he celebrate when he was just about to launch the biggest war in the Alliance's history? I'm glad they are having fun. Felix smiled as he watched a live stream of his team's party in Earth. Felix. Asna couldn't help but feel a bit saddened at the sight of her lover. She knew that he might seem cool about it, but deep down, he must feel exhausted. Everyone was celebrating his hard work to level up his race's rank. Yet, instead of joining them, he was still working hard to protect them. Sure, the primogenitors only eyed his race and wanted its extinction because of him, but he still took it upon him to do everything possible to protect them. Felix, Lighthouse Squad N9 have reached its position. Candace suddenly informed, do you want us to group up with them? Felix kept eyeing the live stream for a few more seconds before he waved the hologram away with a stoic indifferent expression, let's go. Candace opened a void rift and they both jumped inside with Nimmo. The moment Felix faced the direction of Linoliv, he saw only an astronomical blob of gooey substance. It was at least 100 bigger than Linoliv. Although they had much bigger bioweapons to be used, Felix settled for this one since it was the closest to the Linoliv. After all, those bioweapons didn't travel at the same speed as Candace and the others in the Void Realm. Felix and Candace quickly appeared right next to it, joining the hundreds of Void citizen. You guys know what to do. Felix spoke to them telepathically through his wisp residing in Nimmo's consciousness space. Leave it to us. Enur assured with a solemn tone, he was responsible over leading this group. Good luck. Felix nodded before departing with Candace towards Linoliv's capital city. Since he didn't have void eye like them, he was forced to watch through Candace's eyes in his consciousness space. Though, he didn't need to put his main consciousness there as he had a wisp doing that for him. As expected of vampires' taste in nightlife, the city was lit up dimly with old-fashioned light poles. The sun was nowhere to be seen as the sky was covered with thick gloomy crimson clouds. They weren't covering just the city but almost the entire planet, making it perfect habitable place for those night dwellers. As for the city structure, it was just as old-fashioned as its light poles. Most of the buildings were small grey castles built near each other in an orderly manner. The streets were paved with flat blocks of stones arranged beautifully. There was a vast plaza in the center of the city with an artistic fountain that was spilling blood in the sky. After Felix reached this plaza, he noticed that it was packed to the brim with vampires. All of them seemed to be happy as they celebrated their race managing to rank above the werewolves in this cycle. For them, this was the biggest joy ever. When Felix saw families walking with their children in the plaza and buying them candy and stuff, he felt like someone had gripped his heart tightly. "Don't falter, Felix, don't falter," he murmured to himself as those families overlapped with the image of human families being murdered and chased out of their homes. He knew that there was no other solution to this but war. The only thing he could do was either be active and start it here or remain passive and see the war explode in his own galaxy. When Felix's anger had been pacified after learning about the war for the first time, he also started to have doubts if this was the way forward. He even started to think that it was best to just take control over the Void Nation and not retaliate against the primogenitors. But, when his rationality took over, he understood that he was dealing with three merciless monsters, who wouldn't hesitate to continue what they started even if the Void Nation turned against them. They might not do it right away, but they could just as easily make their move on his race if he suddenly died. If he died, they wouldn't have any reason to fear Lord Cows anymore. He was certain that they would vent their anger on his race and cause its extinction just like they did to half-serpents and avions. If they had no shame to do it for his masters, why would they think twice against him? So, Felix hardened his humanely emotions and continued on his plan to get rid of their descendants. Still, he wasn't as demonic as them and knew when to draw the line. 1 voidlings will be used to group up low-born void creatures and elite void creatures. Looks like everyone have their targets locked. Felix commentated after spotting many annihilation fiends, void succubi, and imitators situated throughout key positions in the city while staying in the void realm. Most annihilation fiends were clustered near the plaza. To be exact, on a castle's porch, which was facing the plaza and everyone in it. There were 10 royal chairs arranged in a single line on this porch. At the center of the line, a single throne stood out with its magnificent kingly design. All the chairs were empty, yet Felix's soldiers were floating behind each one of them with stoic expression, making them resemble executioners. Only the throne had no one behind it. It didn't stay like that for long as Felix and Candace situated themselves near it. Just like they were waiting for them, the moment they took their positions, the high-profiled vampire nobility began to enter the porch while wearing formal attires. The crowd cheered and applauded each time a noble appeared on the porch. Soon, the handsome Marquis Sebastian appeared while waving his hand with a faint smile. As the right hand of Duchess Alina, he sat on the right chair next to the throne. If only he knew that Felix was breathing down his neck from a different dimension, he would have wiped that smile off his face and escaped as far as possible. Clap clap clap. Suddenly, the applause intensity had jumped over the roof the moment the crowd spotted a breathtaking fair-skinned woman step inside the porch. She had a ginger long hair that flew down her shoulders and slightly her bewitching face. When she pushed a stalk away, it revealed narrow hazel eyes, set sunken within their sockets and watched loyally over the folk they've enchanted for so long. A single scar reaching from the bottom of the right cheekbone, running towards the right side of her lips, leaving a beautiful memory of heroic liberation. For a female, a vampire, and a duchess to leave a scar, it only implied that it had a significant importance to her. This was the face of Aline Gedney, a true idealist among vampires. She gained respect and complete devotion from her subjects during their last war against the werewolves, where she led her race to a hard-fought victory after an epoch of humiliation under them. All of them couldn't wait for the day when she leads them to kick out the werewolves from their galaxy and finally own all of it instead of just half. Duchess Alina stood elegantly among the marquee with her mesmerizing royal red dress and golden crown. With a charming soft smile, she placed a finger near her mouth and everyone quietened down like a goddess had given them an order. Under this sense of tranquility, she sat on her throne and spoke with a soft angelic voice, "I am delighted to see Evrio." Boom boom boom. Before she could finish her sentence, the crowd had their eyes widened and smiles stiffened at the horrific sight of Duchess Alina's head exploding into shower of blood. In her head's place, a fist was seen dripping with blood after emerging out of nowhere. When some vampires managed to move their pupil away from her, they were met with the same image happening to the marquis. All of their heads were turned into blood clouds, the only difference were the arms resembling demonic ones with veins covering them entirely. They belonged to none other than the annihilation fiends responsible over this high-profile assassinations. In a split second, all the arms withdrew back inside a small void rift before it was closed shut, leaving behind the vampire's upper nobility completely dismasted and a crowd unable to believe their eyes. Thud! Thud! When everyone saw Duchess Alina and the Marquis headless corpses slip with their own blood and disappear from their vision, their hearts were finally started to beat again. They beat like there was no tomorrow as terror, disbelief, shock, agitation, and every single negative emotion took completely over their minds. This can't be real. Someone wakes me from this nightmare, please. When the crowd's negative emotions synced together, the plaza was turned into a chaotic battlefield. Female vampires screamed at the top of their lungs while children cried their eyes out at such a traumatic sight. Meanwhile, most of the male vampires had a utter mental breakdown, unable to believe what their eyes were feeding them. Who could blame them? Every respected nobleman with great honor in the vampire race was murdered in a split second under their own eyes. Control the crowd! Control the crowd! A bearded giant green orc wearing an armor kept shouting thunderously the guards in the plaza. He was also scared shitless by what just happened, but as an orc, his heart wasn't hit as hard as the vampires, allowing him to regain control over his emotions quickly. Since most of the guards were outsourced from other races, they also managed to control themselves and start doing their jobs. Haha, no one can defend against our assassinations. An annihilation fiend laughed evilly while watching the city fall under complete chaos with Felix and the rest. The imitators and void succubi might not have participated in the main assassination, but they had also killed off many other important figures around the city simultaneously. All of this to ensure that no leadership would emerge after the chaos and help the vampires control the situation. While Candace and the others were speaking with each other excitedly at their success, Felix was showing a skeptical expression. Wasn't it a bit too easy? He wondered, even Duchess Alina didn't react in time to my strike. Well, you can't force out complications. Asna said, you have boosted your strength to almost 320 kbf in the past 2 years. In addition, Duchess Alina had no reason to be on alert. Last but not least, they were still just vampires, not dragons. So, it's not too peculiar that the assassination went smoother than you expected. You make sense, but I don't know. Felix rubbed his eyelids. I guess I was making this too difficult than it should be. Should we move on with the plan? Candace asked. Yes, tell Einir to make his move. Felix smiled coldly, it's time to make this planet disappear. Without hesitation, Candace gave Einir the go signal. The moment he received it, Einir created a void rift thousands of kilometers away from the planet's exosphere and commanded his army to expand it. What in the hell is that? Oh God! Is that a void rift? Quickly informs the Duchess. Before long, the void rift was big enough it was spotted by soldiers on the security fleets and even the people on the space stations. Everyone felt like their legs turned into jelly when the void rift surpassed the size of the planet and still kept growing bigger and bigger. When fear started to settle in at the sight of this dreadful cosmic void rift, none of them dared to continue their journey to Linoliv. They scrambled with terrified expressions towards their spaceships and speed away from Linoliv, not daring to look behind them. Commander Robin Kett. We just received news that upper nobility has been assassinated. A soldier gulped a mouthful as he relayed the news, even Duchess Alina. What do you mean everyone is dead? Commander Robin Kett shouted furiously. Instead of repeating it again, the soldier displayed a holographic screen, showing the horrible death Duchess Alina and the Marquis. It's real. Commander Robin Kett went as quiet as mum, feeling like his soul was sucked out of his mouth at the notion that the vampire race had lost all of their authoritative figures simultaneously. Yet, what scared him the most was the sight of the ever-expanding void rift, that was now big enough to cover the sun completely from Linoliv, putting it under a veil of pure darkness. This had caused almost everyone to halt and look above them after the sky turned black from red. They were fortunate enough that the clouds had hindered their vision from the void rift. If they ever saw it, almost everyone would have most likely passed out in fright at such apocalyptic scene. *T. What the hell am I supposed to do? Commander Robin Kett felt completely lost as not even his extensive experience was enough to help him face this kind of situation. Before he could make any idiotic decisions, a void rift suddenly opened near him. Candace walked out of it with an alluring smile on her face as usual. Little guy, you have 5 days to evacuate the planet before it gets devoured by my friend, you better act fast. Candace winked at him and the soldiers before retreating to the void realm. 5 days, devoured? Who is she and why the F*** are we being attacked? Just like Candace responded to his inquiries, countless long humongous pitch-black tentacles emerged from the void rift and kept stretching towards the planet. When the commander and the soldiers saw them, they all spoke under their breath while their faces got contorted from pure bone-chilling fear. The World Eater. One of the most fearsome and nightmarish cosmic creature in the universe was merely thousands of kilometers away from their planet. Commander, what do we do? His subordinate stuttered with clear panic in his voice as he eyed those dreadful tentacles keep pushing outside the void rift. Fire! Fire everything at it! Commander Robin Kett shouted loudly, trying his best to hide his agitation and fear from showing up. He was appointed commander of Linoliv's security for any extraterritorial attacks for more than 5 millennium now. Yet, never in his life was he put in front such an impossible challenge. The subordinates delivered his orders to the rest of the security fleet, causing everyone to come in front of the void rift and create a formation with thousands of end-generation warships. All of them pointed their plasma cannons at the cosmic nightmarish tentacles and fired at will. Before anyone could blink their eyes, countless mini-suns emerged on the symbiote's tentacles, making it almost impossible to see anything. Yet, the destructiveness force of the combined red and white plasma weapons made every soldier feel hopeful about the end result, believing that the symbiote would have its tentacles cut off and scared away. Alas, their hopes and wishes were dashed away at the unforgiving horrifying sight before them. Instead of the tentacles blowing up, they absorbed the plasma energy and grew even bigger. The security fleet's most powerful attacks were treated as mere snack by the symbiote. Ha ha, of course it's able to absorb even plasma energy. We're actually doomed, our planet is doomed. My daughter. I have to get my daughter away from the planet. Commander Robin Kett could only watch with a dazed expression as his subordinates and soldiers lose their *T, having no clue what to say to gain control over them. No one could understand his situation and feelings at the moment. In the blink of an eye, he was the sole person responsible over the safety of the entire planet and everyone in it. In fact, he was already certain that the only reason he was still alive was an act of mercy, so he could evacuate at least the civilians. Now that his most powerful retaliation failed to produce any positive results, he knew deep down that only one choice was left. I can't believe I will be the leader of the vampire's race fall. Commander Robinket smiled bitterly for a brief moment before his expression turned hardened again. Activate Black Protocol. I repeat, activate Black Protocol. The moment his subordinates heard that term, they didn't know if they should feel relieved or discontented. They knew that Black Protocol signified the complete abandonment of the planet in case of an apocalyptic scenario. What are you waiting for? Move, move, move. We have 5 days at best to get everyone to safety. Call for some goddamn reinforcements. With one final shout by Commander Robinket, everyone stopped moping around and began operating just like how they were trained for this protocol. Good, he isn't mad enough to kill everyone for honor or ego. Felix sighed in relief after seeing the security fleets retreating to the planet. He might have started the war, but he refused to cause any unnecessary deaths. 5 days was enough to get at least the civilians to safety. How did the Ruiner and Miriam's teams do? The Ruiner and his squad have succeeded in assassinating all the high-profile Distrians, including their Empress Uris. Right now, they are threatening the last remaining authority figure to order an exodus for his civilians with the Dreamer and 3. Candace reported. As expected of the Ruiner, Felix was greatly satisfied by the Ruiner's performance. He knew that assassinating Empress Uris was actually much more difficult than his mission. After all, the Istrian Empress should always have a passive gravity field protecting her from anything. Yet, the Ruiner got rid of her nevertheless. It wasn't really that surprising, believe it or not. The Ruiner was the strongest individual in the Void Nation, surpassing even Felix. Annihilation fiends weren't like Void Succubi, Jinns, or imitators. Their pride sin allowed them to believe themselves to be the strongest in the entire universe, and they were much better than everyone at anything. This helped them become immensely strong before those weaker than them. Hence, why were they known for destroying planets and killing many civilizations in ancient times? The only way for them to lose their imaginary strength was if they met someone with greater pride than them, and they acknowledge it. In this universe, only the primogenitors, Unigens, and such superior races were capable of making them feel this way. That's why Felix used only them as the main assassins. Unfortunately, Mammon and Miriam's team failed to assassinate King Teardog. He was hiding in darkness, making it impossible for them to touch him. Miriam added with a deep frown, they are now considering swarming his planet with voidlings to force him out. I see. Felix ordered, tell them to keep him busy instead of focusing to kill him. Felix knew that attacking 3 planets at the same time wasn't going to go smoothly 100%. After all, he couldn't expect all 3 leaders to be in the open at the time of the assassination. If they didn't take them at the same time, they were bound to find out quickly that they were under attack and be on alert. So, he was satisfied with at least getting 2 out of 3. Felix, check the network. Asna called out, you have made a mess again. With the invasion developing to this stage, it was obvious that the news had already spread far and wide throughout the universal network. Thankfully, he already had many wisps connected to the UVR, allowing him to switch his main to one of them without needing to exit Void Realm. Oh my, I really halted the celebrations on everyone. Felix remarked after seeing that every news outlet is covering the invasion on those 3 races. Articles were generated at the speed of light. Streamers switched to reacting to videos, showing the perfect assassinations of vampires and Istrian's nobility. Reporters halted their current stories on the Great Reset to focus fully on the war. Social media was lit in fire as every notable celebrity was sending their prayers and wishes like they would be helpful for sh*t. Wherever Felix scrolled, he found news about this. Even his social media posts by his agent Emma were filled with new comments related to the war. This is so scary. How can someone control those freakish cosmic creatures? Dear Lord! 3 capital planets of one of the top strongest races in the universe are on the verge of being deleted from existence. What the hell is going on? I am crapping my pants right now. Is my planet next? Am I the only one freaking out at those intelligent void creatures? They F***ing killed Duchess Alina and even Empress Uris. How many is there of them? Why have no one knew about this before? The Alliance needs to step up quickly and save us from this evil invasion. This is a war against all of us. When Felix read the last comment, he knew that the writer must be one of the 3 targets. It might seem like he was being delusional for asking everyone in the Alliance to help out, but Felix knew that his statement was correct. Since his Void Nation was considered as an outsider force, attacking those 3 races meant attacking the entire Alliance as a whole. However, he did his research and concluded that every race in the Alliance was forced to contribute a percentage of their armies based on how big it was. As for those in close alliance with his targets, they would naturally be forced to send even more. If he didn't know that this was going to happen, he wouldn't have been always referring to this as a universal war, which was going to involve everyone one way or another. Felix, our spies have informed me that Spider-Kin race, the Centaur race, Metal race, and Marine race, and more are starting to prepare their fleets to send out. Candace informed. Release the Voidlings' armies on them. Felix smiled coldly, this will show them that anyone daring to get involved will receive our love at his home grounds. Arthur and the War Room didn't spend 5 years on just recruitment before they met Felix. He was smart to focus on wrathful creators and capturing as many Voidlings as possible and then positioning them near key planets of each powerful race in the Alliance. His original plan was to force out those races to focus on defending themselves instead of helping out the human race. Now, his preparation was being used for the same purpose but for different targets. With a single order, tens of gigantic void rifts were opened near each capital planet of those races, finally allowing the ocean of gathered voidlings to seek out food. Under the stunned eyes of the authoritative figures of those races, tens of millions of voidlings surged into water from a broken dam and started traveling towards their planets. The prepared fleets meant for providing assistance were all forced to halt in their place at this sudden terrifying invasion. When the news reported this, everyone felt chills course on their spines after a horrific realization had finally hit them. No one was safe from the Void invasion throughout the entire Alliance's territory.